What is happening out there, rotoscouts, baseball fans? Welcome to a Monday show. Yes, we are a couple minutes late getting started. Apologies for that. Yes, we are here to talk about every single baseball game on the slate. Yes, I think Nick Castellanos is going to hit a home run tonight. Probably two, because if you haven't heard, the Pope is dead. And Nicky Castellanos always hits home runs on big news days. Obviously, we're not making that the pick of the day. Obviously, it's a little difficult to bet on that, but why not keep a fun thing going? That was memed to death all day today. Hopefully, your days out there are going well. Good start to the week. Nice, reasonable day. Not too warm, not too cold here in the Jersey area. A little bit cloudy out. Got to take Joker for a walk after this show. I'm going to try and squeeze in a walk between, the critical update time and the end of the show. Only 6 games to get through. A lot of confirmed lineups in. We'll ease our way through the slate. We've got a lot of interesting pitching spots to talk about. A couple big call-ups. One of them's on the screen. Still not added to the Marlins roster, unfortunately, or to the DraftKings slate, rather. But Agustin Ramirez, another interesting bat added to that Marlins lineup. They're slowly but surely getting a little bit better. Reds, a lot of power showing. Going up against Max Meyer, who's been pitching pretty well. Interesting spot to talk about here. There's a lot on the board to go through today. Welcome to the show. Quiet and chat so far. There's a few people here hanging out. I'm sure everybody will fill in the gaps, chime in. Say hello when you pop in. Drop questions, etc. The website is rotoscouts.com. All the subscriptions that you guys already know about are under $1 a day for access to MLB, NBA, NHL, all in. One price, no per sport fees. Gets you all the projections, the top stacks board, pitching projections, the home run picks, all the NBA projections. Those are up already. So are NHL for tonight. 2-gamer in the NBA, 4-gamer in the NHL. I was looking at the NHL playoff bracket, by the way. Not only is playoff hockey basically the best portion of any sport, in my opinion, it's just the intensity, the fun of it. This year in particular, despite my Rangers not making the playoffs, which is a total disaster, really, really good playoffs. Like the setup of the first round, every matchup is pretty compelling. Really good playoffs this year in the NHL. Excited to watch. My Knicks play tonight. Going to be watching that later on. Let's talk some baseball. That's what everybody's here for, is just giving some people some time to trickle in. Woody's here in the chat. Colin Sutherland, Andy, good to see you guys. Handful of regulars. Let's pull up the old Vegas board here. We'll get started on that. A lot of tight lines, a lot of no crazy high run total. 8.5 is our high point right now. That's Padres Tigers. Wind is blowing out in that game, pushing the run total up a little bit. Fernando Tatis is pulling a monster home run mark against Cater Montero. They're at a 3.96. The Tigers favored in that one. 4.64 implied total on their side. Definitely a spot we can consider some bats. So Randy Vasquez on the mound for the Padres. That first game, Nick Lodolo against Max Meyer. 2 reasonably competent pitchers. I have Lodolo in a placeholder lineup right now. And kind of willing to roll with it. Even with that Marlins lineup maybe improving a little bit. They're drawing just a 3.90 total. He's a decent pitcher. He's also, I'm hoping, maybe slips by a little lower owned than he ought to. At least on FanDuel, they had him red tagged because he was on the paternity list. But he wasn't hurt. He hasn't missed time. He was just on the paternity list. But hopefully people just kind of shy away from it because they don't read the note and find out what it was. Probably not. Usually we just get ownership dictated by the big sites. And obviously the numbers. I think we got playability on both sides offensively, though. I'm definitely looking Reds. I made Ellie the home run pick of the day. We've got McLean in that lineup, also showing a ton of power upside. And Meyer's been good and is good, but he's also somewhat gettable. Lefty power plays up in this park. Power in general can play up in this park a little bit. The third game down, the Phillies at the Mets. It's an interesting matchup. Darren Nola on the mound for the Phillies, and the Mets are drawing a 4.28 implied total as home favorites against him. Tyler McGill keeping the Phillies down at just 3.81 implied runs. Phil's showing a little bit of power in the heart of the lineup around the guys you would expect. They've been a little bit shaky to start the season, but there's tons of upside in the top end of that lineup. It's just McGill has been very, very good and looks the part of an improved pitcher so far this year. The battle of the TL teams, STL and ATL, the Cards, the Braves, duking it out in Atlanta. This was originally the highest total on the board. Now it's tied, 8.5 runs overall. But the Braves drawing a 5, essentially 4.99 implied runs on their side. They're going up against Eric Fede. And then Spencer Schwellenbach, one of the favorites of this show as far as young starting pitchers, keeping the Cardinals down at 3.62 implied runs. Looks pretty solid on the mound. So that one really leans Braves bats, really leans Spencer Schwellenbach. The Blue Jays and the Astros, just a 7.5 run total in this one, 3.55 on the top-heavy Blue Jays side. Not too big a fan of them. They're going up against Hunter Brown, who I like a lot. I think we could definitely utilize him. And then it's Kevin Gausman, who has been somewhat resurrected in his last couple of starts. Strikeouts have come back in a big way. 10 2 starts ago, 6 in his most recent start. But we'll see how it holds up. The strikeouts have been kind of absent for the last year plus for Kevin Gausman, but formerly a top-end strikeout pitcher and still a very good pitcher, but highly threatened, obviously, by a very good Astros lineup. So I do think it's a four corners game in that you could take the top of the Blue Jays a little bit. You could take some of those Astros bats in a stack a little bit, but we're probably mostly looking at pitching in that one, considering how low that total is and kind of how short the slate is overall. Last game on deck, drawing a 7.5 run total, but there's definitely some upside for power in this game, pretty much on both sides, because Robbie Ray, as we know, can give it up. He's given up 4 home runs in 4 starts. 2 of them came in the first game, 1 in the second, 1 in the fourth game. Pitched cleanly over 4 innings in the second game. That was against the Yankees. Struck out 7, but walked 4. Ran that pitch count up, kept getting into trouble, and the Yankees just didn't really capitalize. Didn't hit the big blast. But he's always been vulnerable to that, so I do think there's power upside shown for the Brewers a little bit. And then coming back the other way, we've got Quinn Priester on the mound for the Brewers. He's gone 5 in each of his starts. He has given up 1 earned run. He only gave up 1 hit the last time out. I continue to really need to see more, but I'm at least a little bit intrigued by a kid who was formerly a top prospect. Looking at Stuff Plus, he's got a positive Stuff Plus mark on 4 different pitches, but he's got a dramatically underwhelming Stuff Plus mark on 2 others. So it kind of evens out to slightly sub-average stuff so far. But he was at one point, again, a highly regarded pitcher in the Pirates system. We just haven't seen a ton at the major league level, and he's been kind of okay in short starts these first 2. But there's swing and miss here a little bit, but definitely power showing on the Giants side of that one, despite just a 4-run total, 3.57 on the Brewers side, and this ballpark kind of working against hitters. Let's go to the pitching board. As always, sorted by DraftKings. So Spencer Schwellenbach kind of standing alone at the top of the board by a couple of points, and I think that's pretty justified here. Going up against a very gettable Cardinals lineup, and depending on what happens with Aaron Nola, he's the best pitcher on this slate. Spencer Schwellenbach is. Nola would have been that guy coming into the year probably. I still would have given him the credit for that, but it's been ugly looking. That's why he's priced down so far, 8,200, 8,300. Still feels like a great price. Still projects out pretty well. So for the money, I'm definitely putting Aaron Nola in some lineups, and I do expect him to get back. I don't think he's just dead. But right now, Schwelly's the top option on the board. 98, great price on FanDuel. 95, pretty good price on DraftKings. The fact that Hunter Brown is significantly more expensive against a low strikeout Blue Jays squad is a little bit weird. I would definitely consider Schwelly as the better option between those two. The hope there, Hunter Brown goes a little bit lower owned on FanDuel at 10.5. He's 9,000 versus Schwelly's 9.5 on DraftKings, so I think it's a little bit the other way around. He'll probably get a little bit more popular. Maybe Schwellenbach falls a little shorter than he should, but probably not. That's a reasonable enough price for his upside. Really like the Lodolo option at 87 on both sides. Tons of upside going up against that Miami lineup until further notice. Like I said, they've called up some interesting kids. They're going to maybe get a little bit more interesting, more talented, but very much remains a work in progress. No reason to shy away from Lodolo for that. 87 across the board, projects out as the number 2. Ray does have strikeout upside. There is strikeout upside to be had in that Brewers lineup, and he's very effectively priced. Comps with a handful of other guys right on the board at a variety of prices. So given the ceiling, I do think there's plenty of reason to go to Robbie Ray in that ballpark with just a 4-run total on the other side, or 3.5 run total on the other side. So 75, great price on DraftKings. He should be aggressively popular over there and makes a very good option as SP2. 84 on FanDuel would play as an SP, as standalone SP. As mentioned, Nola way too cheap. Gaussman, just don't love it at 93 on FanDuel against Houston. Too much respect for that Houston lineup overall, but there is upside there. Again, the strikeouts are coming back. It might be a day where it dips back down to just like 4 against a low strikeout Houston squad, but he's at least interesting overall. At 8,000 on DraftKings, he's way more in play. That's a pretty good price on DK. FanDuel's just not incorrect. It's just with the other options that are available at cheaper prices, I like all of Lodolo, Ray, and Aaron Nola better, just given the matchups. Maybe not Nola as much, but the first two, Lodolo and Ray, for sure. Nola's just worrying me with the scuffling, and that is a good Mets lineup on the other side. So he doesn't exactly have it easy either. So call Nola and Gaussman more of a tie, but Nola gets more shares probably just on that cheap price. On DraftKings, you could lean Gaussman a little bit more, 300 less. Tyler McGill, I don't mind at 89 on FanDuel, would play some shares. There's some strikeout upside for sure in that Phillies lineup. And again, he's been looking every bit the part of the improved pitcher that he was supposed to be coming out of spring training. He's looked very, very good. I like the upside, but there's also a pretty big downside. It's not a safe spot by a long stretch. 7,200 on DraftKings makes him extremely, extremely playable. Very competitive with Robbie Ray for SP2 shares at those prices. And you could very easily combine Robbie Ray and Tyler McGill on DK and go double cheap at pitcher. There's nothing wrong with that. Those are two worthy starting pitchers with upside for strikeouts. You're in a high danger spot on one of them and like a moderate spot on the other one. It's not safe, but that's why you're getting a gigantic discount on that spot. I actually really like that idea now that I'm thinking it through. Max Meyer, dramatically different prices across sites. FanDuel giving him some respect for the start that he's had to his season. DraftKings really not at 7,600. 10-1 on FanDuel. I prefer basically everybody above him just because I think that Cincinnati lineup is interesting. They're drawing some high power marks against, but we'll talk the spot through. Probably playable on FanDuel, and especially if he goes very under-owned for the money, but I don't love it at that price. Everybody else gives you better bats. Priester at 74.66. Again, with the low total on the other side, it's at least encouraging for some shares, and he's been good over his first two. There is some quality there, but he's more a dart throw than everybody else. You can see the dip in the projections board. Montero's kind of a no. Fede and Vasquez kind of no's for me. If you need the cheap dart, I would probably, as uncomfortable as it would be, probably consider Vasquez from the bottom just because he's the cheapest at 55, and there's no real daylight between these projections anyway. And, in ways that Tigers lineup is the most vulnerable on the days where those kid bats don't really come through. But it's not safe at all in those bottom three. There's not really a good bargain bin option there. Fortunately, with the multiple very high-end options in the sevens, you don't really need it. Hit the thumbs up down there as we get started. Hit the subscribe as we get started. Ricky Lee is today the day Judge finally dongs. The league owes Aaron Judge a home run. I don't know if you saw yesterday's game. Judge wrecked the ball in Tampa late in the game. Left field shot, initially called foul, and they reviewed it. And the review in that park sucks because it's Steinbrenner Field. It's a minor league park. So they don't have all the camera angles that a normal major league park would have. There's no outfield upper deck. So they're doing it from like home plate angles where you can't tell until they got like the really zoomed in one on where it landed. Aaron Judge hit the ball out of the stadium into the trees in left field. And the trees it landed in are 15 feet to the right of the foul pole. I put a screenshot of the paused replay with the ball circled into our Discord to show where that ball landed. It is so far to the right of the foul pole. It's ridiculous. And it wasn't like a hook shot that like looped back in. It was fair ball. Yes, fair ball. Is he going to turn into fat out eyes? He's got what? Is 7 home runs on the season? 6? Like he's not hitting the ball hard. I love Ricky's trolling. Larry C is here. What's going on? Larry says, sounds scary, but I kind of like Meyer. He has good stuff. Yeah, he's got good location. He makes his stuff work. Thinking about ways that I can fit more on the board here. Like I was looking at the way Gunn has his layout, and he goes like more vertical on some stuff. I could kind of do that with real estate here. I can move this whole board down a couple lines and buy like 2 lines there, and maybe drop in more of the like location plus and pitching plus numbers at least. And then maybe like the individualized pitches, and I was thinking like up here, I could drop some of like the ballpark stuff. I might change the dashboard up a little bit and try and pile even more ridiculous numbers and information in here that nobody will know what they mean. But the reason I bring that up, you can see Max Meyer 95 via Stuff Plus. It's good, not great. It's effective. He's been good with via the strikeout. He is inducing swinging strikes at a 13.2% rate. But part of his game is most definitely location. If you look, that 95 Stuff Plus is in conjunction with a 112 mark by location plus. And that's always been his game. 107 against the 94 Stuff Plus, 100 against 88 Stuff Plus. So he's a precise pitcher. He hits his spots. He makes his stuff work, even though his stuff, technically, the physics of the motion of the ball through space and time when he throws it is technically slightly below average. And that's what I've been referring to a lot of time with guys like this, where I've said, like, yeah, Stuff Plus doesn't really love the arsenal, but he makes it work. He induces good swinging strikes. We can see the strikeout rates and so on. That's typically the type of guy I'm talking about. They come through via location and via hitting their spots. But that does also make them more vulnerable than these like extreme high Stuff Plus guys who are just elite strike throwers, who are just elite at missing bats. He's been very good at missing bats, but that's an uptick so far, as is the big jump in strikeout rate. I do believe that it's mostly real. I think he is good, but I think the swinging will drop back down to 11.5%, 12%. This will probably normalize to 24, 25, somewhere in that territory. But you can see 292 xFIP under the 263 ERA. He's not really putting that many guys on base. The walk rate's average. Has given up a bunch of hard hits and a ton of exit velo with a couple home runs allowed so far in the small sample. What saves his life there is the low launch. 7.3 degrees this year. In 57 innings last year, it was 10.1. So he's got a little bit of ability to keep the ball in the yard, but when he makes mistakes, they do tend to travel. You can see the monster home run number from last year. That's problematic there. 47.2% hard hits, 90.6 miles an hour of exit velo, and a 13.9% barrel. That means every mistake he's making is getting launched. So that hasn't been nearly the case so far this year. But these are high numbers for, despite being a low launch angle pitcher overall, those are high premium contact numbers. So you do have to watch out a little bit of that. And that's, again, that comes down to, since the stuff is, marginally below average technically, if he misses his spot when he's working just outside the zone trying to induce a swinging strike, or like just borderline in the zone, if he misses an inch to the right, that's getting tattooed by Ellie, and it's going to be the home run pick of the day coming through. You can see Ellie right here at 11.61, kind of standing out. Matt McClain right above him. I like both those bats today. Made Ellie the home run pick of the day. I made Jake Fraley a couple spots further down at 6.51, the home run pick from the Reds in the individual team picks. But yeah, Meyer very playable. Obviously, way, way more so at 76 on DraftKings. The 10-1 on FanDuel makes it interesting, though. I'm kind of curious about where that's going to land. Let's see what that ownership projection looks like. Single digits. These projections have him 5th, 6th. 4 guys in the double digits. Nobody above 20%. This is FanDuel. So he is moderately low owned. I think it's a playable spot, but that price is really going to box you out of a lot of lineup combinations. So this is a problem. And compared to a lot of the other guys on the slate, I don't know that we can match ceiling as well at that price. On the other side, at 87 on both sides, Lodolo projects out great. That's with a 15.2% swinging strikeout rate so far on just 8.7% swinging, 24.1% CSW. You can see he's pitched cleanly with a 2.31 ERA, but a 4.14 xFIP over his 4 starts tells us a little bit more of the truth. 4 2/3 in his last outing, he gave up 4 earned on 5 hits, gave up 2 home runs. That was to the Mariners. Struck out 6 in that game, but obviously not a great start. Before that, 3 strikeouts over 6 against the Giants at San Francisco, 4 strikeouts against the Brewers at Milwaukee. Pitched clean in both of those games. No earned runs allowed in either game. Went 6 2/3 in those 2, and then 6 innings in his first start. So what we like is against the low-end team that even if they put a couple runs on him, is unlikely to sequence a lot, unlikely to work a lot of deep counts. Nobody on this team really draws that many walks. There's plenty of strikeouts here. He might run it up via the strikeout a little bit, but probably not via the walk unless he really doesn't have his command today. And that is not his game. 2.2% walk rate, only 2 walks in 4 starts so far this season. So I like the upside for Lodolo to pitch deep into this game and find some Ks along the way. He's got more upside for strikeouts than is shown so far. Last year, 24.7%, for example, over 115 and a third in 21 starts. 4.76 ERA with that, but a 3.95 xFIP. Too many guys on base. 7.5% walk rate that year. So we're not going to maintain down here, but that's still a very good average walk rate. Nearly 29.2. I almost said nearly 30, but that's not quite true there. Closer to 29. 11.8% swinging. Obviously a little bit above average via stuff plus. Not tragic in terms of premium contact, home runs, anything like that. So there's quality here. And he's going up against easily the most gettable team on the board. 3.90 implied runs gives us the upside we need. 8,700, very, very playable as the number 2 projected pitcher on both sides. But you can probably grab some Marlins bats against. For one, they've got some interesting righties. What sucks is you do lose Jesus Sanchez. Down lineup for one, and then lefty-lefty is a big hit to him. But he's a really talented kid, somebody to keep your eye on. If you expect they're going to run the score up against Lodolo, then he becomes a more interesting bat later in the game. So I think he's very much in play, especially because he's only 29, 27. 15.4% barrels in his 20 plate appearances so far. Hasn't hit anything out. Hasn't really capitalized on the premium contact, but it's been there. And that's very much in line with expectations for this kid as far as his contact. 12% barrels, 12.2 over each of the last 2 years. 46.3% hard hits 2 years ago, improved on that to 50.9 last year while cutting strikeouts and pushing walks in a only moderate sample. It was, oh no, I'm sorry, that was 537 plate appearances. I always forget, it was 2 years ago, 402 plate appearances where he missed more time. Last year he saw more plate appearances. 252, 313, 417, just a 166 ISO was just at league average for run creation, but 18 homers, 16 steals. That's an interesting player over a full, give him another 100 plus plate appearances for a full season. There's talent there. So he's on the board at worst, but you're probably prioritizing more of the top end. Xavier Edwards is always a priority bat if you're going to this team. He's made 100 plate appearances on the season. We're at 299, 380, 333, a 103 WRC plus, stolen 6 bases. That's his game. Slap hitter, hit some singles, get on base, draw some walks. He's at an 11% walk rate so far this year. That's exactly where he was last year. 19% Ks is roughly similar to where he was last year. This is what he does. But he's not somebody who drives the ball. He is somebody who needs help from his friends. He's got Eric Wagaman behind him, Connor Norby behind him. Norby is kind of interesting. 14.8% barrel rate last year. That was in a sample of 194 batted ball, 194 plate appearances, 9 home runs, a 202 ISO. So reason to believe that there's a little bit of power upside there, especially against a gettable enough lefty. Wagaman's made good contact this season so far. He's got 2 home runs on the board. He's got a 396 xWOBA, which is very compelling. 8% barrel rate, 52% hard hits. So he's been effective driving the ball. 113 WRC plus, been one of their best bats by a mile. Still very small sample, but if you're going Marlins against the lefty, I think you definitely want him. So we have top 3 there, and then we're stretching a little bit, especially on DraftKings. Unless they add Agustin Ramirez here, it becomes pretty thin. So it might be better off as a 3-man on DK, where you're just going there. Norby's just a third baseman. Lopez is just a second baseman. So you could do that. You could include Otto. He's got 2 home runs on the season. A 365 xWOBA is kind of the encouraging mark there. He's low strikeout, fairly low walk, so there's a lot of contact. He's just not great. 91 WRC plus last year with a 107 ISO, 6 home runs. He did steal 20 bases. It's just not ideal as like your fourth man in cleanup hitter bat to have that. It's probably why it's better as that 3-man. Or if you do get Agustin Ramirez, he's interesting. And he is on the FanDuel slate at just 2,000 as a catcher. I think he's playable there, but I'd rather have him at basically any other position than catcher, first base, util. This was a call up late yesterday afternoon. I was kind of pissed off because nobody has him in the Dynasty League as a minor league guy. And I missed that they called him up until like 9 p.m. and Mike Brown had already grabbed him. Last year in 548 plate appearances from AA through 2 organizations, he was on the Yankees, and then he was part of the Jazz Chisholm trade, or he was in the Yankees organization, and then part of the Jazz Chisholm trade. So 548 across AA and AAA in those 2 organizations. He slashed 267, 358, 487 with a 134 WRC plus, a 221 ISO, struck out just 18.6% of the time, walked 11.1% of the time, hit 25 home runs and stole 22 bases. And he's a catcher, or has catcher eligibility fantasy-wise anyway. So there's a lot of upside there. If you get him dropped in at 25, 28, even up to 3, it's a righty bat with power upside, with obvious skill set. I definitely think he becomes interesting, but they got to add him. Let's see if he's there. I checked right before the show, and they had not added him, but they did go in and add this guy, Javier Sanoa. So maybe you get him. Let's see. Still no. Unfortunate. Kid's good. So yeah, we're stretching on FanDuel maybe a little bit more because we do have that bat available. You can go shortstop, probably outfield with Wagman, second base with Norby, and then you grab him and put him at the corner. I don't dislike that. That's a 4-man leaving Jesus Sanchez out, which at that point I think is okay. Because again, you're stretching down to 7 in a bad lineup against a good pitcher who he has a handedness deficiency against. So that would be the interesting way to build there. Dane Myers in the middle of the lineup. Solid last year in terms of the premium contact numbers in whatever that sample looks like. So far this year, 40+% hard hit rate, 108 plate appearances last year, 3 homers, 4 steals, did have a 112 WRC plus. So at a very cheap price, if you are stretching to 5, you can definitely include him there, but it's a weaker full stack on DraftKings, I think, than it is on FanDuel. Bottom of the lineup with Sanoa, over 44 plate appearances. We're at 350, 372, 450. 127 WRC plus, maybe a mixer. Light contact, 3.2% barrels, 35.5% hard hits. Not exactly giving you much, not exactly drawing many walks, so that on base is going to diminish quickly as the BABIP goes down. Mix and match piece, I'd say at 25. 21 on FanDuel, you get 3 positions, including both middle infield spots. He's at least interesting. And then Ronnie Simon at the bottom of the lineup is at the dead minimum price. Maybe it was him that they added, because Sanoa's been here. Simon in AAA last year, 527 plate appearances entirely in AAA with Tampa Bay's system. 283, 356, 429 with a 104 WRC plus, 10 home runs and 20 stolen bases. Year before across AA and AAA, 553 plate appearances with Tampa Bay's organization, 13 homers, 31 steals seems to be his game. 95 WRC plus, lower BABIP, 301 BABIP versus 339 last year. Hit just 250 versus the 283, and then, obviously got on base less, created fewer runs. But interesting enough skill set. Draws his walks, lowish, 18 to 20% strikeout rate with moderate power and upside for speed for sure. He's a little slight tick on the older side. He's 25. He was 24 last year, putting up those numbers at AAA. So you're just right on the threshold when you ought to be graduating. But at the dead minute, second base, if you're going Marlins already, you can roll the dice. Probably wouldn't be in my first build, but my third, I think he'd be there. On the red side, so again, Ellie, home run pick of the day, 11.61, should play up for some power opportunities here against Max Meyer. Again, if Max misses his spots, ball's going to travel. 4,000, 5,800, well worth it at shortstop, 19.3% barrels, 54.4% hard hits, 5 home runs, 7 stolen bases. He's already scored 15 runs, which is up there. 207 ISO, a 366 xWOBA. Matt McClain's hitting the ball really, really well. Just ignore the 204 at the front end. Don't believe in batting average. 339 on base so far, a 391 xWOBA with the 265 ISO. He's been mashing. 54.5% hard hits, almost exact match for Ellie's power. Ellie's contact results. 18.2% barrels so far. Ridiculous. Austin Hayes, not completely out of nowhere, but I would say these have been an unexpected 30 plate appearances. 22.7% barrels, 59.1% hard hits in a small sample of batted ball events that's yielded 3 home runs, a 357 ISO, a 525 xWOBA, and a 239 WRC plus. Still very cheap at 3,900 on DraftKings, 27 on FanDuel. Very playable bat. 8.30 in the home run model is not nothing. TJ Friedel's got an 8.45 up at the top. They're showing a ton of power upside here. So I'm kind of interested in those bats for sure. At those prices, especially, you can average down. I would go like that, and then I would grab Spencer Steer right there. And we're at 44.80 for a stack that does include McClain and Ellie. I like those prices. On FanDuel, if you just did it straight line 4-man, 3,200 a piece, not bad. You could cheapen it up by going to Steer. I'd probably go to Steer instead of Friedel. Actually, you know what? I might, if I was doing it on FanDuel, go like that. Second base, shortstop, probably outfield. You've got first base on Steer. He's not totally undeserving of first base opportunities, but there's better upside first baseman, I think. I think he fits better in the outfield. That brings me to 31, basically the same. There's a lot of functionality on the red stack. You get Gavin Lux at 3,400, 2,600. He's off to a good start. 346 xWOBA, creating runs 32% better than average. 319, 427, 391 slash line. Second base eligibility on both sides for a cheap price. It's great. The only issue is you've got McClain. Then you want McClain at second base in 90% of your red stacks. Friedel's a light contact guy up top, but he does draw a little bit of power. He's got 1 home run on the board already this season. Last year in 341 opportunities, he hit 13 homers. Just a 155 ISO, but he's one of these guys that capitalizes. 18 homers 2 years ago in 556 plate appearances. So he gets away, just 3.2% barrels, 31.5% hard hits, but he makes it work. This ballpark is, not this ballpark, but their ballpark. Big part of that. Steer, the start is not where we want it, but as mentioned, he's in play because last year, 20 home runs, 25 steals over 656 plate appearances, just a 96 WRC plus, just a 178 ISO. That's why he's kind of borderline at first base. He's a better fit at second or in the outfield, but he's playable at first with a little bit of counting stat upside for DFS. Fraley's an interesting power bat from the left side against righties, 6.51 in the home run model. He's got 2 knocks on the season. 351 xWOBA is kind of in line with expectations. Another guy who doesn't make the best raw contact, just 5 homers last year, but stole 20 bases while getting on at a 330 clip. Year before, he did go 15 and 21 over just 380 plate appearances, which is where some of the idea of some of that lefty pop can come from. Very hit and miss type, but for DFS, that's kind of what we want. He's going to be low owned. He's going to be cheap. So you can definitely grab Jake Fraley in some of your red stacks. Noemi Marte got a home run on the board, stolen base, 285 xWOBA over his 20 plate appearances, a 150 WRC plus. Very much remains to be seen what he actually is without performance enhancers. And then Jose Trevino is just a very good pitch framer who is off to a good start over his 49 plate appearances, but he's really not that high quality of a DFS bat. 318, 375, 500, kind of belied by his 291 xWOBA so far. Last year, he had 8 home runs in 234 plate appearances, 139 ISO, 83 WRC plus. Kind of what I'm talking about. Reds bats. Lodolo, Meyer, Marlins bats. All 4 pieces in play. The Marlins only loosely. I prefer Lodolo to the Marlins. Gundackers here. What's going on, Gun? Got to get back to you, I know. Jim Parrish has it. Braves with Fede pitching. Sign me up. Yep. That spot's showing that little pocket of power again around the Braves. Those 3 big bats all over the magic number. We'll get there in a sec. Larry and Gunn, I guess. What happened? I'm trying to figure out what you guys are talking about. FanDuel practically begging us to play the Braves, says Greg. Yeah, again, that spot, it's a couple games away. But yeah, right there, looking pretty juicy for power. The fact that Olsen's only at 29, you get Michael Harris at 27 is pretty hilarious. They're a little bit harder to reach on DraftKings, but those are also reasonable prices over there. Let's talk pods, who are also showing a ton of power. 17.21 for Fernando Tatis. Manny Machado at 13.82. Did we get the confirmed pods? Not yet. So a lot of pop showing up there for the Padres as well. The issue with them, as always, is just they're so top heavy. You've got Tatis, Machado. You get a little bit from Xander Bogaerts. You get a little bit so far this year from Gavin Sheets. You've got Arias up there typically, but not in the projected. Is he hurt? I missed what happened to him. Oh, that's right. He collided with Dubon. So he's stable, rejoins the team as of 4 hours ago. But he is on the injured list, concussion protocol as of 17 minutes ago. So there you go. 7-day IL for Luis Arias. So the bottom of their lineup, like Jose Iglesias, 292, 333, 375, just completely empty stat line. 245 xWOBA tells you the truth about that. No contact to speak of. Julie Gurriel, love the guy, but we're probably past the point where he should actually be in the major leagues right now with that bat looking the way it is. 133, 235, 167, a 205 xWOBA, 27 WRC plus over his 34 opportunities. As mentioned, wish he had gotten an opportunity at 22 instead of 32. But that's the nature of the beast. He's very cheap if you're going pods at first base, but probably better left on the shelf. I think it's a day where they'll play better as a 4-man on FanDuel or as a short 3-man stack on DraftKings. You do have a interesting bat if he ends up in the lineup. Tierso Ornelas, dead min priced on DraftKings, dead min priced in the outfield on FanDuel. You can see he's pulling a decent number here in the home run model. 0 for 1 so far in the show. Got called up on, I want to say Saturday. Friday. Got into the game on Friday. 1 plate appearance. Didn't do anything with it. I don't want that game log. Come on. 548 AAA plate appearances in the San Diego organization last year. 23 home runs, 7 stolen bases, 297, 367, 497, a 200 ISO. Struck out just 16.1% of the time, drew 9.7% walks. Year before, across AA and AAA, as a 23-year-old in 552 plate appearances, 15 homers, 8 steals, 285, 371, 452, a 112 WRC plus, just a 167 ISO, but only struck out 19% of the time while drawing a 12.1% walk rate. And kind of held the numbers while dipping in power that season, moving from AA to AAA. The fact that he hit 23 AAA home runs last year and had a 200-plus ISO completely alleviates any concerns about like that dip in power. It obviously came right back. He was 24 playing in AAA last year. Again, kind of on the fringes of where you would want him. But now that he's arrived, he got the promotion just on time. It's an interesting bat to add to this lineup, especially while Jackson Merrill's still out. So for the min price, if I'm going pods, he's at least a lineup lengthener. What you would hope for is to get him in like this kind of territory in the lineup, but I think odds are it's more down here if it changes from 6. But if he's there, that's an interesting bat. I would go like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I love getting a cheap catcher into a 5-man if I'm building on DK. I would rather have somebody in this kind of territory in the lineup, obviously, but I think you could do that, dip down the Diaz there. Tyler Wade is just not that good. Gurriel's kind of shot. Jose Iglesias, not that good. So I think we're working like right in that pocket. And that brings my average for a stack that does include Tatis, Machado, Sheets, and Bogaerts, 3,800 apiece. It's an effective price stack, if nothing else. And they're going up against Cater Montero, which should be encouraging for Padres stacking. Montero, in his one start this year, came away with a handful of strikeouts. Where is he? 8 Ks. That was against the Brewers at Milwaukee. Went 5, struck out 8, but allowed 3 home runs. Walked 1 guy, 5 earned runs on 8 hits. So not a good start. 9.0 ERA, but a 2.45 xFIP. So pitched better under the surface. The home runs you don't really hold against him. But if you look back over time, 98 and a third, you can hold those home runs against him. 4.61% home run rate last year. That came despite just 36.5% hard hits, 89.1 miles an hour of exit velo. He is a fly ball trajectory pitcher, definitely vulnerable to the homers. Just an 18.7% strikeout rate in that larger sample with a 4.33 xFIP. Walked too many guys, put too many guys on base. The walk rate is actually fine. 9.4% swinging strike rate, 26.9% CSW. Unless this is real, and we've just seen massive year over year growth, and Stuff Plus would suggest that that's not the case in the 1 game sample. We're probably just going right back to those old numbers. So I think you can throw some San Diego bats at Cater Montero here, and he's probably your lowest end pitcher on the board, just given the extreme low strikeout nature of this San Diego lineup and the quality that they've got, at least around the obvious in the top 4, and then whatever you get from the bottom of the lineup. Just a high danger spot for a bad pitcher. I really don't see it. They're only drawing a 3.96 implied total, which I find kind of inexplicable. Either way. Wind blowing out in Detroit. I guess it's a reflection of how short that lineup might be. But man, that feels off. 17, this has gone up. 17.21. It was 17.17 earlier when I put the home run picks together. 13.82 for Machado. 7s for both Sheets and Bogey. And then again, Ronellis showing a little bit of pop. Elias Diaz at the bottom of the lineup with a 5+. Not dead. On the Padres mound, 5,500 for Randy Vasquez. As mentioned, you can see the numbers. 94 via Stuff Plus in the 4 starts that he's made so far this year, with a 9.3% strikeout rate against the 16.3% walk rate. That is completely upside down. Even if it were the other way around, it would be a terrible strikeout to walk ratio. A 5.1% swinging, just a 21.6% CSW. This is a contact-focused pitcher. Last year, slightly better, 14.4 against the 6.7% walk rate, but this is still terrible. 4.90 xFIP against a 4.87 ERA. Somehow had a great mark by Stuff Plus. This is what tells you, stuff is not always everything. 8.1% swinging, 23% CSW. So despite the idea that the physics of the pitch work well, he just didn't make it. It didn't translate to results for him. So we're getting a good Tigers lineup with a 4.64 implied total going up against a very gettable pitcher. So why am I saying at 5,500 he would be the bargain bin SP2 if I had to draw one from these bottom 3 guys? And it's only about drawing from those bottom 3. I think Quinn Priester is offset higher than those guys, and I would much rather have any of these guys in the 7s. But if I'm going to the bargain bin, let me get the actual bargain. Let me go all the way to the 5,500. And all we're looking for there is 5 clean innings. It's not highly likely, but he's capable of doing it. In the last 2 starts, he went 5 innings exactly in both. Against the Cubs, he gave up 7 hits, but only 1 earned run. Struck out 2, walked 2. That's a Randy Vasquez kind of a game. Against the Athletics at that park in Sacramento, faced 18 hitters over 5. He gave up 1 hit, 1 earned run, walked 3, struck out 1. 4 2/3. His ugliest game of the season was against the Cubbies at Wrigley. 2 home runs allowed, 2 earned runs allowed on 2 hits, 3 runs total, walked 5, struck out 2. These are all not good starts, but if you're just taking a $5,500 free square and give me 5 innings, give me a shot at the win, which I think the Padres offense should definitely give him here against Cater Montero. No promises. Vegas doesn't agree necessarily. But I think you've got a 5-inning cheap start here with a little bit of opportunity for the win bonus. What you don't have at all is strikeouts. Even against this Tigers team, you're probably talking about capped at 4 with this pitcher. Against a handful of walks, this team can draw some walks. 8.1% for this collection of hitters last year with a couple high peaks. So far this year, that group is 9.2 with multiple guys in the double digits. So it could easily blow up. This is not actually a recommendation. This is just saying, as a hypothetical, if somebody had asked which of those bottom 3 guys is the playable one, I would say take the cheapest guy who is just as likely to give you 5 okay innings as those other 2. Tigers bats, much higher priority against Randy Vasquez. I definitely buy that total. There's a little bit of power showing, but not a ton. They're also a little bit lighter projected. If you're running the projections in a optimizer or a sim, and it seems like if you feel like you're not getting enough Tigers, that's a team I would maybe give a little bit of a nudge via whatever the tools allow you to do, or just go in and literally just add a half a point to everybody's projection and they'll come up a little bit more. But they felt a little bit light when I was putting the stacks board together. I had to move them up. Again, I do get into that board and make sure everybody's where they ought to be. But they're an interesting team. Glaber, 4,600, 3,200, makes a ton of contact, 268, 318, 366 to start his year, an average 327 xwOBA. Creator runs at 102. He's all right. He missed a little bit of time, so he's got to click again. But he's been very low strikeout, which is nice to see. 11.4% so far, 6.8% walk. When Glaber's going good, he cuts strikeouts down pretty significantly, and he draws some walks. He's also put decent bat on ball, 41.7% hard hits. Very playable at these prices at the top of the lineup. McKinstry is a bat on ball player as well, 288, 400, 409. Not a ton of power, but drawing a 330 xwOBA so far. More interestingly, creating runs 39% better than average, drawing a 16% walk rate against that 19.8% strikeout rate so far in a small sample. He's at least playable. I greatly prefer him in the outfield on DraftKings and get a better corner infielder at third. He's only 39. He fits in the outfield. You can go at second base on FanDuel probably. I don't love him at third. Shortstop's just okay. Second's probably where he belongs. 2,800, not a bad price for that. Riley Green, Spencer Torkelson, 2 actually interesting bats. 43, 45 for those 2 on DraftKings. Outfielder and a first baseman. Very, very easy to reach. 29 and 35 for those 2 on FanDuel. Torque, a little bit more highly priced for his hot start. 7 home runs on the board this season, a 350 ISO, a monster 405 xwOBA with a 93% better than average WRC plus mark as he's closing in on 100 plate appearances, 16.4% barrels. Love the start for Spencer Torkelson. I hope he keeps it up. I believe in the talent. I think it's very, very real. Major down season last year after a very strong breakout season the year before. Just got to give him time. Still a very young hitter. Green off to a slow start, just 3 home runs, 248 xwOBA was really concerning. But last year, this is a guy who hit 24 home runs while slashing 262, 348, 479 at 217 ISO, led the team at 35% better than average for run creation. Riley Green is just too good to keep this up for too long. 43.4% hard hits. The barrels have gone away significantly so far. We're missing his premium contact, which is the culprit for the low numbers. I expect him to come roaring back to life. Colt Keith, low-end contact so far in the show. Low-end results, 180, 324, 213 so far this year with a 73 WRC+. Plus. Last year, 260, 309, 380. The slash line was all right. Not good, but okay. You could get by. But a 120 ISO didn't drive the ball effectively. 13 home runs for a kid who's supposed to hit for power, just a 97 WRC+. Plus. If you're going to Tigers, he's very cheap. He's easy to use, especially at second base on DraftKings for 31, but that does box you out of Glaber shares. On FanDuel, you can put him at second. You can put him at first, depending on what you're doing with other guys in the lineup. I would probably still prioritize a $2,400 Colt Keith at second base over a $2,800 Zach McKinstry at second base or at either of those other 2 positions. So like if I was weighing that out, Colt Keith at second over all 3 options on Zach McKinstry on FanDuel. On DraftKings, they're different, so it doesn't really matter. But then I would flip it, and I would say that I would probably prefer McKinstry at either second, short, or third than Colt Keith at first. I know that doesn't necessarily sound all that logical because he's the same guy regardless of where he plays, but it's about what he boxes you out of rostering from other teams, other options, or like on his own team, Spencer Torkelson. So I think there's a little bit of back and forth you can play with that. Jace Young in the lineup, not available on DK, dead min priced on FanDuel. last significant sample we had 2024 across 430 plate appearances in mostly AAA. 415 of them were AAA. I think the first 15 were a rehab stint in A-ball. So 415 AAA plate appearances last year, 14 homers, a 257, 377, 454 slash line, 198 ISO, drew a ton of walks, 16.1% walk rate, 22.4% strikeout rate, 123 WRC plus. So at worst, another interesting young bat to add to this team with all their upside. At the mid price, lefty bat going up against this super high contact righty. That's a really interesting option for 2,000. Yet another reason that you don't necessarily want McKinstry at third base. So like second, outfield, first, that sucks. Oh, and that sucks too. Yeah, another team that's way better on FanDuel today. The Tigers are like a short three-man, like 1, 2, 3 or 1, 2, 3 on DraftKings. I don't know that you stretch that. You do because of that total. But if Jace Young doesn't get added, that kind of sucks. Especially with that positional conflict on two of the more appealing bats. Way more playability over here. So on FanDuel, you're going 1, 2, 3, and then you've got your decision point there. Second, actually no, because you don't want to go him over Glaber. So yeah, 4 brings us to 2,900 a pop for a lineup that includes Glaber, Green, Torkelson, and Young. It's interesting. Javi Baez, Trey Sweeney, and Tomas Nido at the bottom of the lineup. Nido, not much of a bat. Sweeney remains to be seen. He's got a home run. He's got a stolen base on the board. A 305 xWOBA is a little underwhelming. 84 WRC plus so far. Hasn't shown a ton, but is supposed to be a decent hitter last year. 7.6% barrels, 44.3% hard hits over 119 plate appearances. It yielded 4 home runs, 2 stolen bases, and an underwhelming line otherwise. But there is talent there. Cheap price at shortstop. He's loosely playable, but I'd rather get a shortstop share elsewhere. And then Javi Baez has been mostly dead. 268, 305, 321, but a 259 xWOBA, 15% worse than average grading runs. Very, very difficult to reach for Javi Baez with all these other options on his own team and on other teams. This goes Tigers bats reluctantly. I really kind of want to put the top end of the Padres up there, but I'll go with Vegas since it's more than a half a run different. Tigers bats, Padres bats. I wouldn't play either of these pitchers, but if you're going to do it, go to all the way to the bottom of the bargain bin on DraftKings if you're going for the bargain bin SP2 at 55. But again, all those guys in the 7s are better and more playable. Phillies, Mets. Let's see if we got the Phils lineup in. We do. That makes sense. Been talking for a while. How you guys doing out there? Should be an interesting week of baseball. Oh, programming note. That reminds me. Programming note for those of you who are regulars. Yes, Tango. Kurtz is one of the top overall prospects, top power prospects in the entire game. Should mash when he gets here. Definitely looks awesome. I told you. Oh, he got called up. Oh, that's why you're asking. Damn. Awesome. Upgrade for the A's for sure. That team is good. As I said the other day, I think sometime last week, it is just a tragedy that they took that team out of Oakland right when they got interesting. That sucks. But yeah, you know, he's a masher. He's one of the top hitting prospects in the sport. So yes, big time priority pickup there. Chandler Simpson, if he's still available, big time priority pickup. The kids that we've talked about so far today are all reasonable pickups in season long. So yeah, some interesting players are landing in the show. Jim Parrish, yes, Torkelson for Detroit, way more than Tyler Wade. I don't know what the context of those two name drops was, but yeah. Torque over Wade every time. So Aaron Nola's had a couple concerning outings. 6.65 ERA, but a much better 3.44 xFIP that tells us there's probably nothing wrong. 25% strikeouts against a 9% walk rate, still inducing a 12% swinging strike rate, a 31.3% CSW. He's given up a little bit too much premium contact. It's resulted in a few home runs against. Stuff plus is still 4 points above the average. It's right where he was sitting last year. Is there anything really all that different between any of these numbers outside of the ERA and any of the last year's numbers? I would argue that some of them are better. So I'm really not worried about Aaron Nola. I'm just going to take advantage of the lower prices. Again, the results, 6 earned runs in his most recent start over 5 1/3 against San Francisco. He gave up 9 hits, 7 runs total, struck out 8, but walked 4. 7 strikeouts against 4 walks in 5 innings against St. Louis. Another problematic start. He only gave up 2 earned runs, but the strikeouts against the walks and 5 hits, he was out of there after 5, didn't get to the quality start, which is problematic. He faced the Dodgers in his second start of the year. He ended up going 6, faced 25 hitters, just 3 earned runs allowed, but he gave up 2 homers. He only struck out 2 in that game, but the Dodgers are very low strikeout. There's a lot of forgivability in what's gone on. If there were any concerns in the underlying numbers, I'd be calling it out more. And we can take a look at where do I want to be? The 4-seamer's down about a mile an hour. 92.5 down to 91.2 this year so far. He's lost 5-6 points of whiff on that, which is at least noteworthy. He's lost some whiff on the knuckle curve. Oh, no, gained some, excuse me. 43.5% whiff versus 37 last year. So that pitch has been perfectly effective. The sinker. There's your culprit. So he's got a 480 slug last year down to, oh no, again, I was reading this backward, 318 this year. So that's improved. What's been the problem? He's lost a few cutters, it looks like. Cutter's not a very good pitch for him. Cutter got mashed last year. 585x slug against a 796 slugging percentage. Just a 17.8% whiff rate. He threw 294 of them. It's his least used pitch, but he might want to just get it out of the repertoire. So far this year, he's thrown 37 of them. He's got an 848 slug against that pitch. Or excuse me, an 848x slug against that pitch with a 1.40 actual slug, 1400. 28.6% whiff. The whiff rate has gone up on it, but it's gotten destroyed. It's just 1 home run allowed, a double allowed, 3 hits overall. So it's very small sample numbers, obviously, but it's gotten mashed. 5 batted ball events and 2 extra base hits and a single on 5 batted ball events against the pitch. It's not good, especially given the larger sample numbers from last year. Outside of that, everything seems perfectly fine. So we've lost a little bit of velo on the 4-seamer, and the cutter just gets mashed. Otherwise, it's Aaron Nola. He's just cheap. Yeah, the A's pitching is certainly part of the problem. But I think like Osvaldo Bido he's not a go forward ace or anything, but I think he's a serviceable pitcher. That JT Ginn that we talked about the other day, I forget, how did his start over the weekend go? I forget. Getting sidetracked here. 3 earned runs, but he did strike out 7, went just 4 2/3. There's some Ks in that Brewers lineup. That was what, Friday? All right, so Nola, 83-82. Incredibly playable. I think he comes back as far as the numbers go, and that price is going to go back up. I'm not worried about the whip. Again, I'm just not concerned. The threat with Nola here is that he's facing a fantastic Mets lineup that plays 7-8 deep, and you can draw some stacks. You've got 2 guys above the magic number with Juan Soto and Pete Alonso, both in the 11s as far as home runs go. Alonso's been destroying baseball so far this season. Juan Soto is Juan Soto. They've got Francisco Lindor, who's been heating up over the last few days and getting his season in gear. We're up to 3 home runs, a 359 xWOBA, 271, 323, 424, creating runs 11% better than average. Low strikeout rate, low walk rate, doing Francisco Lindor things. Like I said last week, before these numbers improved, he'll be fine, and he is. So Ridiculously talented 3-man off the top, very threatening to Nola upside. I think that gets him through a little lower owned than he ought to be, but he's going to be popular given those prices. So it's a little bit of give and take. I would take some Nola shares. I would take some Mets Bats shares at a 4.28 implied total. They're very difficult to roster on DraftKings with all three of those guys in the fives to mid fives. A little bit better on price on FanDuel. For one, Lindor's inexplicably at 32, and then you get Soto at 38. Alonso at 42. That's workable, especially if you four-man it and go Nimmo at 27, or honestly, any of the lower end guys. Jesse Winker at 25 is not a bad option. Luis Lorenz is okay. Luis Acuna at a cheaper price, but further offset from the stack is very playable there. Beatty and Tyrone Taylor are at worst playable for price. Like, those five are really interesting. On DraftKings, you can get that to, it's not terrible, 48 apiece. If you just straight line 5-man that. And then let's say you want to let's leave Nimmo out. And it won't be that big an offset, but Luis Anel is kind of interesting at 35, and that gets us to 46. But a bigger price offset, if you grab either of these playable $2,500 bats, and Beatty's interesting at second base for 25, this is to 44. And that stack does include the big three. It's just you're drawing a couple of lower end bats against Aaron Nola. But it's a very playable stack. Nimmo off to a weak start in terms of the slash line, but the 335 xWOBA suggests that'll come around. He's got 4 home runs on the board. He's making great contact with an 11.8% barrel, 54.4% hard hit. Tons of upside for Brandon Nimmo at these prices. He is better than those prices would tell you. Last year, 9% barrels, 47% hard hits, hit 22 home runs. Did see a big diminishment in his slash line last year as well. Just a 172 ISO is also noteworthy. But field counting stats, 22 homers, 15 steals, a lot of runs, a lot of ribbies. So it gives you what you need fantasy-wise. And he's, again, a better hitter. 2 years ago, 274, 363, 466 with a 193 ISO. Creator runs 30% better than average. Where that guy went, I'm not entirely sure. Winker, given the 10.7% barrels, the 42.9% hard hits over 46 plate appearances so far this year, I'm on board. At cheap pricing, I'll take shots. This is exactly what we want. He'll be lower owned on perceptions of not being that good, not being, hot over 46 plate appearances, whatever. Just ignore it. The 252 xWOBA is not where we want to see it as far as like finding underlying metrics, but we know this player. Last year, 360 on base, created runs 18% better than average, hit 14 homers, stole 14 bases from the left side. He's a very effective bat. A couple years ago, 14 home runs over 547. And then his bigger season, I believe, was 2021, which is buried here. Yeah. The monster year was the last year in Cincinnati. And then he got kind of lost, went to Seattle and was lost in that big ballpark. And then he was in and out of lineups and injured over the last few years. But that year, 305, 394, 556, a 251 ISO, 24 home runs. It's going back to 2021's. Take it for what it's worth. But he is, when healthy, a very capable left-handed bat. Pre-pandemic numbers still in there. Luis Lorenz at 32. He's made fantastic contact over 53 plate appearances. You cannot argue with that. Honestly, he should have better results given that contact in whatever his batted ball sample is. Just a 283 on base. A 401 xWOBA tells you that same story about the contact. 240, 283, 420 flies in the face of that, the xWOBA and the premium contact numbers. He's just not all that much of a hitter. Last year, 3 home runs in 127 plate appearances, 299 on base, a 148 ISO, 94 WRC plus. Just not much of a bat. Acuna, decent start, over 50 plate appearances, 120 WRC plus. He's stolen 6 bags. He's getting on base. 301 xWOBA suggests that a lot of this is going to come down. The premium contact, not nearly where we want it, not where his own premium contact was in the cup of coffee last year, but there's talent there for sure. Beatty and Tyrone Taylor at least can put bat on ball so far this season. Beatty's seen better results in terms of the premium contact. Neither one has been at all effective in terms of the actual results. 245 xWOBA, 285 xWOBA underneath the bad results on the back of the baseball card suggest that there's not much underlying support for what I'm saying, but as cheap DFS options, they are playable options. They're very low end down at the bottom of the lineup, but you got 11 combined home runs over 400 and something combined plate appearances last year. Neither guy is a good bat for ISO. You got 19 home runs over 500 plus plate appearances 2 years ago. That's what these guys will give you. Typically, I'm looking for Taylor more against lefties, so maybe that makes me lean more Beatty, and I'd probably rather just grab the cheap second base option. So again, more lean toward Beatty, but they're both playable mix and match options at the end of the lineup. Tyler McGill, you can see the stuff plus mark, 15 points above the average, has not yielded a home run yet this season. Missing barrels, a lot of hard hits, a lot of exit velo on a fly ball trajectory, though, suggests that this has been pretty lucky. 3.40 xFIP under his 1.40 ERA. Again, getting pretty lucky in that department as well. But the stuff is real. The swinging strike rate at 10.5 and the CSW at 25% needs some work. Last year, that was 12.5 and 27.6. This is still low, especially given that. Needs to walk fewer hitters, needs to work a little bit better in the zone. But 26.7% strikeouts last year, 23.3 so far this year. With the uptick in stuff plus, you would expect that that'll go up, that this will go back up, or at least normalize. But again, the power will come around against him. Last year, he did get away with similar numbers, though. 9.3% barrels, 41.2% hard hits, 88.9 on the exit velo on a similar trajectory, just a 1.93% home run rate. Year before in 25 starts, 18.5 versus 10.2 on the walks, strikeouts to walks, was bad for runs overall, way too many guys on base via all those walks. A 3.17 home run rate jibes a lot more with almost identical premium contact numbers. So while there's definitely ceiling, the truth on the power marks probably lies in between those. He's somewhere more around a 3% because there's so much launch and premium contact here, especially against a pair of hitters like these two. Bryce Harper, Kyle Schwarber in the middle of that lineup. 13.70 for Schwarb's, one of the top options in the home run model today. 10.58 for Harper. Both those guys, 12.5, 13.8% barrel rates, 45.3% hard hits, 58.6% hard hits. Just mash. 5 home runs, 7 home runs respectively. A 4.09 xWOBA for Harper with a 2.35 ISO, creating runs 52% better than average. A 4.47 xWOBA for Schwarb's with a 3.08 ISO. 7 home runs, creating runs 76% better than average. Literally had to have, as I told you guys the other day, an ongoing all evening long argument with my buddy Charlie about this Phillies lineup the other day. He was giving up on them on April 16th. Like, this is one of the top lineups in baseball, full stop. These run creation numbers, even in, perceptions of a slow start. That's 6 hitters with a average WRC plus of 137. This stretch of hitters, yeah, they've been bad. But those are 3 guys that I totally believe in. This is a really good Phillies team. These are your 2 priority bats. Trey Turner at 53.31, especially at 31 on FanDuel. That's very, very cheap for Trey Turner's talents. The xWOBA is really low at 298, but he's been making it work. He's getting by until everything comes around, and it should come around. 273, 364, 364. He's getting on base and creating runs 10% above average. Last year, 21 homers, 19 steals, 295, 338, 469. Let's not forget how good Trey Turner is. 26 homers, 30 steals the year before. Bryson Stott, a mix and match piece who just needs to get on base, set the table, steal bases. 4,300, 2,800. You want him at second base, not shortstop. Blocker at shortstop if you go him and Trey Turner, unless you're using the util, which wouldn't be ideal. Just put him at second if you use him. Last year, 12% worse than average creating runs, just a 315 on base, but did steal 32 bases. Also has a little bit of lefty pop. 11 home runs on the board. Not impossible for him to knock one out of the park against McGill, but you're really just looking for him for correlated scoring. As mentioned at the beginning of the show, the Pope died today. Nick Castellanos will have 5 home runs tomorrow. Do with that information what you will. I don't actually believe that, but I kind of do. 304, 364, 494, 367 xWOBA. He's actually just been mashing, which is the reason he's very, very playable. 9.4% barrels, 42.2% hard hits, and a propensity to hit home runs on days with big news events. Max Kepler, underwhelming so far this year. 1 home run on the board. A 329 xWOBA is encouraging. 48.1% hard hits. We're barreling the ball slightly more than last year. As we've looked at, the numbers have been like every other year on off for Max over the last few years. This should be an on year, but so far it hasn't been. 217, 308, 333. We'll see what happens, but he's very, very cheap for lefty pop. 669 in the home run model against Tyler McGill. He's playable at worst. Real Muto at 4,000. Very playable catcher on DraftKings, an upside spot. 330 xWOBA tells me that everything over here is going to normalize and be perfectly fine. 41.9% barrels, 9.3% hard hits. Striking out way more than usual at 30.1% in a small sample versus 24.7 last year, 25.6 the year before. But that's, again, it's just small sample over 73 plate appearances. I expect that will normalize. You could say the same thing about the walks. His walks have nearly doubled. Alec Boehm, 35-25. Part of the issues that Charlie has with this team right now, 193, 211, 261, a 286 xWOBA suggests not much under the covers, saying that he'll be better. But the 8.3% barrels, the 51.4% hard hits gives us something to believe in, as does the 280, 332, 448 with a 115 WRC plus last year. Solid line drive hitter. Year before, 274, 327, 437, hit 20 home runs that year, hit 15 last year. Year before that, 280, 315, 398 with 13 home runs. You know where he's going to finish this year? Somewhere around 275, 330, 450 with 15 to 18 home runs. That's just who Alec Boehm is. Tons of good bat on ball, 14.2% Ks, 6.6% walks last year. This year so far, the walks are a little bit further down. Strikeouts are a little bit further up, but we're not far off the mark. As I've said many times, he's like a right-handed Vinny Pasquantino. Johan Rojas, 27-23, mix and match piece. As long as he's getting on base, he can make things happen out there, but this is more the Johan Rojas that's real. 243, 279, 322. So far this year, the 130 WRC plus is nice, but the 230 xWOBA tells you the truth about the player. He's getting on at a 400 clip. He has stolen 3 bases. He's off to a decent start, but there's not much to get excited about other than a cheap price at the end of a lineup. You can use him as an effective wraparound to these guys, though. Man, tough call. This is very firmly a 4 corners game. Aaron Nola. He's too cheap. Aaron Nola. Mets bats, Tyler McGill, Phillies bats. I guess. Which 3-man do you guys like better against the respective pitchers? Turner, Harper, Schwarber, or Lindor, Soto, and Alonso as a 3-man? That's what I was kind of wrestling with. I don't know that I like the Mets 3-man better than the Phillies 3-man given the pitchers. When you stretch it out to the full lineup, the Mets lineup does probably run, not even. It's a very, very close head-to-head as far as the offenses go, and it's honestly pretty close on the mound, and the pitchers are close to the hitters. This game is a toss-up. It's hard to waffle, guys. Andy likes the Mets 3-man better. Synthetic says, with how bad Nola's been this year, I love that Mets mini stack. But again, Nola has not really been that bad. It's a couple pitches. Few lost hitters to walks. Everything else says that Nola's been perfectly fine. Don't get caught up in small samples, guys. This is the real number. This is the fake number. This is real. This is not. This is not. That's probably not. This is up year over year. So is that. So is that. It's like his strike throwing has been better. His ability to induce swinging strikes has been better. He's struck out a couple more hitters than he did at this point, or percentage-wise all of last year. He's just lost a couple of cutters. And it's really just that cutter that was not effective. That's the only pitch that's been bad. So even on an individual pitch-by-pitch basis, other than losing about a mile an hour off the four-seamer, which could easily come back around. Remember, it's been cold. Guys aren't fully loosened up yet. So it's kind of an illusion that Aaron Nola's been bad. With a little bit of an asterisk of, we got to see. Maybe it is 4 bumpy starts to suggest that it'll be worse going forward. We don't know yet. That's the thing. A deep, deep sample tells us that he's still one of the best pitchers in baseball until further notice. Jeff, unless we're talking about like hiding an injury kind of suspicions or things like that, which, you know, pitchers can do from time to time, not fully disclose that, oh yeah, my elbow's been hurting me for the last 4 starts or whatever. Unless we're talking about those lines, I don't really dip too much into the eyeball test when the numbers are there. I'd be more like, oh man, let's put up some side-by-sides and see what's going on mechanically. If he was sitting at like these numbers with a 4-something xFIP and a 90-something, a low 90s stuff plus rating. then I'd be looking, or if we had lost more than a negligible amount off the four-seamer, or if like more pitches were working less effectively. His whiff rate's up on most of his key pitches. His slug is down, and his X slug is down on most of his key pitches. Again, it's quite literally just a few cutters that he lost. And then what else has been ineffective? The four-seamer. Four-seamer's been bad. So that's what you want to watch. If he continues to struggle with that, I think, then maybe you could say something's up. Let's see. Can we get they did add Stuff Plus game by game logs. I want to see this, that, and we have it from last year too. Let's see. Honestly, it looks similar in the start last year. And then the quality of the pitch picked up. I don't think we're worried yet. Let's put it that way. Carlos Soto, what's going on, buddy? But yeah, as far as the eye test, I'm much more always just going to be concerned about looking for is he tipping pitches or is he hiding an injury kind of concerns, and I don't think that's going to be the case here. But we'll keep an eye on him. The price is right for where the performance is right now, and it's cheap for what the underlying metrics look like. Eric Fede is not a playable pitcher. 6,700, 12% strikeouts, 13% walks, a 5.50 xFIP under his 3.43 ERA. The xFIP is the real number. 8.1% barrels, 15.7 degree average launch is going to equal more home runs than a 2.41% home run rate so far. Stuff Plus 12 points below the average. This is a super targetable pitcher. 5 Ks in his most recent game, walked 3, just 1 earned run allowed on 6 hits. He's actually only allowed that 1 earned run over his last 2 outings. He had a no-hitter going over 6 against the Pirates at Pittsburgh, struck out just 2 and walked 4 in that game, so not nearly as good as it would suggest. 0 ERA, but a 6.05 xFIP in that performance with a no-hitter going. That's hilarious. I haven't gotten to talk about it, by the way, but screw whoever the Tampa official scorer is. You, sir, are an asshole. You don't take away a no-hitter 3 innings later on an alleged error. Ridiculous. Granted, Max gave up a hit a couple minutes later, but that is nonsense. For one, as they said on one of the MLB shows this morning, the Yankees, it puts the pitcher at more risk. Aaron Boone, I almost guarantee you, would not have sent Max Fried out there for the 8th inning had he already given up that hit. So it's just shitty. And it's just such a stupid, homery thing to do. You're the home scorer, so you take the hit away so the visiting pitcher can't throw a no-hitter. What is that? And it was a bang close play. It should not have been an error. But anyway. That guy sucks. Or girl. I don't know the person's name, sex, race, religion, creed, any of it, except for what they did to Max Fried. Spencer Schwellenbach, as a counter to Eric Fede, one of the top pitchers on the slate, if not the top pitcher for price at 95, 98, as with the offset projection by 3-4 points. Love him. Think it's a great option going up against a card lineup that is not that good. I've been talking about it for most of the season so far. They had a couple decent games, and all the other numbers are kind of plummeting around the edges. It's a very gettable Cardinals team. They're not very high strikeout, 22.8 for this collection of hitters last year, 21.1 so far this year, and 8.8% walk rate is at least moderately respectable. But you've got a problematic Nolan Arenado with his numbers dipping around the edges already in the middle of the lineup. Brendan Donovan is okay. You're talking about a utility guy who's an average hitter at best. Wilson Contreras, one of the top catcher bats in baseball, he no longer plays catcher. Now he's at first base. I've talked about it a bunch. He's also off to a terrible start, over 90 plate appearances. Lars Nootbaar is an interesting lefty for DFS purposes. He's an average major leaguer, though. There's not much threat here against Schwellenbach. There are available strikeouts down lineup, too. Nolan Gorman in the lineup, 25% so far this year, but way above 30 each of the last two, including 37.6 in a moderate sample last year. Pedro Pajes you can get for Ks. He's an okay bat. You can get him for Ks. Victor Scott you can get for Ks. He's got monster speed, but if you can keep him off first base via the strikeout, it's not going to matter. Jordan Walker striking out 32% this year, is 28 last year, 22 the year before, so maybe he comes down slightly, but those are still gettable strikeout numbers. Burleson's going to be low strikeout. Arenado's going to be low strikeout, but probably not all the way down at 5.8. So if you just went like this, and let's put just Arenado back to his 14.5 from last year, pushes us from 21.1 to 22. And then if we want to say, most of these others are, that was the one, Gorman. Let's put Gorman back from 2 years ago. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt at 31.9. But not at 25. That puts us 22.8. So there's a little bit more gettability in there. Schwelly coming in with a 23.4% strikeout rate, an elite 14.6% swinging strike rate, 5.3% walks against a pretty good and on its way upward strikeout rate. Excellent. 0.85 whip so far. Keeps the ball down. Very good at limiting power, but a 3.19% home run rate. He's lost a couple... 3 home runs so far, 2 in the last game. The last game was ugly. That was against Toronto. I think we had him that day. 6 earned runs allowed on 6 hits, 2 home runs, just 3 strikeouts against 2 walks. Too much good bat on ball in that one. The game before that, he only allowed the 1 home run, 1 solo shot for the only earned run. 7 hits is a little bit of an outlier as well. 5 strikeouts, 2 walks in that one. Had a 10 strikeout game against the Marlins. Good start, but only 4 strikeouts in the first outing of the year against the Pods. The Toronto start will be one of his 3 worst starts of the season, I would pretty much guarantee you. Love the option here against the Cards. 3.62 implied total for them. Tons of punch-out ability for the pitcher. Very likely to be your top option on the day. I really don't want much of the Cards lineup, too, given what I was just saying about them. What's the real appeal? Nootbaar I'll give you. 375 xWOB off the top. Ability to hit home runs, ability to swipe a few bags, 47.34. He's more fully priced on FanDuel, a little bit light on DraftKings. So if you get him, you probably want him over here. And it's a good lefty bat. He's made good contact over the last couple of seasons, low strikeout, fairly high walk. So that one I'll give you. He's a one-off. Contreras at 33, not ideal at first base, even when he's going right. Again, these numbers from last year were very good at catcher. And the year before, very good at catcher. But at first base, those don't play nearly as well. 206 ISO still good, but 15 home runs, moderate output. 140 WRC plus is great. In real life, that plays better at first base than it does for DFS. 203 ISO, 127 WRC plus with 20 homers the year before. 264, 358, 467 that year, and 262, 380, 468. He is a good hitter, and he's moderate strikeout but high walk, so there's a lot of on base and run creation. As far as actually rostering power at first base, he's lucky he's cheap at 3,300. That's kind of what you focus on. Donovan, shortstop and second base, I guess second rather is where you want him. 4,400 though, that's kind of the upper end of the price threshold for where I want to go with Brendan Donovan. He's not really the 356, 387, 540 hitter with a 418 xWOBA. 3 home runs, 3 steals. He's got a little bit of pop in that bat, but it's much more like these numbers over the last couple seasons. Low strikeout with a decent amount of quality bat on ball. Very effective as a correlated scoring piece, but not a centerpiece, not a reason to go to this team. The reason to go to this team died before last season. 4,300, 3,200 with a deceptive 288, 395, 452. He might end up coming away with a decent batting average and okay on base and what looks like an all right season in terms of like via traditional numbers. Arenado, he didn't hit for much power this year, but at least he hit 275 and got on base, at 333. But if you're not getting power from that bat, there's really not much purpose for him. They don't need him to contribute that. They desperately need some power upside. 299 xwOBA, a broken swing. Let's see. We've probably got enough data to measure the swing now. Discipline. Here we are. Man, the bat speed's at least up a little bit. It went from 28th percentile last year up to 52nd percentile. He has the bottom percentile, 1%, first percentile swing length, though. So again, when you talk about the diminishment in bat speed or just having a low bat speed in general on one of the longest or the longest plane swing in the league, big loopy swing, it gets problematic in an awful hurry. And that's where his barrels have gone. That's where his exit velo has gone. Exit velo is up a little bit this year. Average has gone up slightly. The max has gone up somewhat, but that's one event. I continue to think that this is a dead bat in the middle of the lineup. He's not striking out. He is drawing walks. So again, he might hit for a decent average and get on base and create some runs. But the old Nolan Arenado, I don't think is coming back. 4,300 is playable on DraftKings, but he's not ideal at third anymore. 3,200, too high priced on FanDuel. Alec Burleson, mix and match piece with a little bit of power, hasn't hit a home run, 250, 304, 297, a 231 xwOBA. Low strikeout, moderate bat on ball, meh. Jordan Walker, I'm interested in last year's premium contact, the year before's numbers. So far this year, it's been kind of lost. 81 plate appearances, 2 home runs, 2 steals, 227, 284, 320. Problematic for those of us who were supporting him coming into the season. Gorman's just a power bat, 20% barrels so far in a small sample of batted ball events, just 1 home run resulting from that, but a 361 xwOBA tells us about the power. 7.14 in the home run model's not nothing, but he's much more likely to strike out 4 times against Spencer Schwellenbach than do anything with the bat productive. So very skippable, but if you're going to the cards, he's in play. 36 is cheap enough at second base for his power upside. And then Pedro Paz and Victor Scott are super skippable at the bottom. Scott just gives you a few steals. If we're going Braves bats against Fede, which is the talking point of this game, again, this little pocket of power with everybody over the magic number is very appealing. They're also incredibly cheap on FanDuel. 3,800 for Ozuna, fine, but just 33 for Austin Riley, who averaged 30 plus home runs over the last 3 seasons up to last year when he missed some time and still came away with 19, still had a 205 ISO. This year so far has 5 home runs on the board with a 218 ISO, a 365 xwOBA, 23.2% barrels and 57.1% hard hits, and I can have him for 33? Yeah. 5,000 on DraftKings? Yeah. Olsen, even cheaper. Everything I just said about Riley applies to Matt Olson, except he's a lefty. He hasn't hit for quite as much average, but he's an absolute masher at the plate. That includes the missed time last year, the diminishment last year. 2,900 is too cheap for Matt Olson. 4,800 is closer to the mark, but still a couple $100 light at worst. So far, 3 home runs, a 426 xwOBA is what you want to focus on. 371 on bases, great. 233, 371, 411, fine. 426 xwOBA with this kind of contact, 61.8% hard hits, 18.2% barrels from a guy who does that for a living. Absolute smash spot against Eric Fede. 10.34. I was very tempted to make him the home run pick of the day, but I didn't because I used him just the other day. The guy I don't love in this lineup is Alex Verdugo off the top, but he's at least cheap. He's an outfielder, and he's the 4th most appealing outfielder to me in this lineup. So I'm probably going in the other directions. But given the spot for correlated scoring, you can obviously include him in some lineups. He's just not that good. 14 okay plate appearances so far, yes. A 443 xwOBA, yes, so far in that small sample. This is who Alex Verdugo is. 621 plate appearances with the Yanks last year, 233, 291, 356, a 123 ISO, 13 home runs, and 83 WRC+. He's not good. He's never really been good, despite what some Yankee fans will tell you. People still calling for him to be on the team. Ridiculous. Ozzy Albies, 49.32, another player who's discounted too far. Everybody's just a little bit cheaper than they ought to be on DraftKings. Everybody's more significantly cheaper on FanDuel. Albies has 4 home runs, 2 stolen bases on the year. A 318 xwOBA he's created, runs 6% better than average, making average kind of contact, but low strikeout, fairly high walks, steals bases, excellent option at second base. in a high-quality lineup, and he's been better than these numbers in years past. Michael Harris, 203, 226, 354. Not an ideal start. 304 xWOB is at least stable. 3 home runs, 4 steals. We're looking for counting stats. There is upside for that from Michael Harris. Sean Murphy, 4 quick home runs when he came back. Still a 20% barrel rate over 42 plate appearances now. The average is normalized already. Everything will come down around the edges, but he is a masher of a power hitting catcher. At 46, it's not an ideal price fit. You like a little bit cheaper of an option because you're going like those 4 plus him. So we're essentially just 4,800 straight down the line there. So you're not really getting much of a discount, but they're all fairly priced. And then on FanDuel, where you don't really need the catcher, I prefer Matt Olson, especially for 400 less and a better spot in the lineup. But I think there's playability together. I think you can alternate shares in an abundance of Brave stacks, but Olson's my priority. Then Jared Kelenic, if you need a cheap lefty bat, at least he's got a 12.9% barrel rate in his small sample of batted ball events. He's turned that into a 140 ISO and 2 home runs so far. It's been pretty problematic for those of us who like Jordan Walker, support Jared Kelenic coming into the season. As usual, his time got jerked around a little bit at the beginning of the season, breaking camp with Profar there, and then the suspension for Profar, and on. Eddie Rosario was in the way for a little while. Now he's gone. He's on the Dodgers, so they brought in Alex Verdugo now to get in the way. It's just, I don't know. Nobody believes in Jared Kelenic. He's gotten a little, like this is a half the plate appearance, not half, 2/3 the plate appearances he probably should have gotten. But it's getting difficult to believe. He's very, very cheap, though, at 23-24. Nick Allen, just a mix and match guy. There is a free square if you want him, but in no way is he a playable. He's playable because he's in a highly desirable stack. In no way is he a priority, and he's problematic at shortstop, is what I was trying to say. Schwellenbach and the Braves bats tied up at the top. Love both options today. Really no Fede whatsoever, even at price, and minimal cards. Really not a fan of this cards lineup. Blue Jays lineup still not in, despite the fact that I've been talking for an hour and a half. It's always a reasonable thought, Tango. It's something I try and talk about when I bring up launch angle and guys who, suppress home run power. You typically see it come through the home run model when guys have that attribute. So that's why I'm always talking about like guys going against Logan Webb, Framber Valdez, guys who just are elite at cutting launch angle down, inducing ground balls, not giving up extreme fly ball trajectory. The home run model column is probably the easiest spot to notice something like that in. But yeah, it's at least on the board. But overall, not as like a general rule. Depends on who we're talking about. We do have the Astros lineup. So, a couple very playable pitchers here. We still are, I think the jury is still going to be out on Kevin Gausman as far as what we're actually going to see. But as mentioned, at least in the last 2 starts, the strikeouts have come back a little bit. We talked about it. He lost like 10 points of strikeout rate year over year, 31-1 down to 21-4 year over year in a complete sample in both seasons. He started 31 games, pitched essentially the same number of innings in both seasons. He was otherwise very similar, 265% home run rate against the 249 year over year, despite allowing a bunch of barrels, a fairly significant launch angle, a lot of hard hits, a lot of exit velo. He got away with all of that. This year so far, the exact same numbers except a higher barrel rate, actually more launch as well. So he's gotten burnt a couple more times on mistake pitches, but I would suspect that given what he's done with that over the last couple seasons, this probably normalizes back down for him to just his typical ability to pitch through that. It was similar this year as well. 28.3% strikeout. So we're probably talking about, if we get the return to form, probably back, that'll look like 26, 27, maybe 28% strikeouts in the long run. Right now, we're at 22% over his 4 starts. But again, the last 2, he struck out 10 2 starts ago against the Red Sox at Fenway, went 8 innings in that one, faced 27 hitters. And then he struck out 6 of 23 over 6 innings against Atlanta. There are strikeouts in those lineups. In the Atlanta start, he gave up 2 earned runs on 2 solo home runs, 6 hits total. Just 1 unearned run against Boston over 4 hits in those 8 innings. That was a spectacular start. The start immediately before that one of the reasons we were concerned against the Mets, over 5 1/3, he struck out 0 hitters, walked 2, struck out just 4 against Baltimore in his first start of the year. My gut would be that we're probably going to linger in this territory. If he's doing this, though, like 22 to 24% strikeouts, a little diminished, but maybe up from last year, but not walking anybody, that could be effective around this price. At 93, I don't love it compared to cheaper pitchers with more/similar ceiling on FanDuel, but he has been good. Like, it's difficult to say he hasn't been good. 2.49 ERA, 3.91 xFIP is a little elevated, but it's 0.71 whip, that very, very strong walk rate. So there are things to like. He's inducing his swinging strikes. The CSW is around where it normally is. So some good, some bad all mixed in here. The stuff plus is up somewhat year over year. That's why the jury's kind of out, because I could make both arguments from the numbers that are right in front of our faces here. But at 8,000, I do think you can throw some darts at it at worst on DraftKings. The issue with that is tough matchup against the Astros. There have been more strikeouts in this Astros lineup so far this year. They're at 24.6%, but that's with Isaac Paredes up like 4 points year over year. Yainer Diaz up several points. Christian Walker is as well, but it looks like he's not in the lineup today. But you've got Cam Smith at nearly a 30%. You've got a pretty juicy rate on Brendan Rodgers there, who's been lower than that in years past, but we'll see what it looks like over a longer sample. So maybe some strikeout upside for Gausman, but it's probably one of the less safe spots considering where he's pitching for strikeouts right now and what the actual attributes of at least their most important hitters are. That's what makes it rougher on FanDuel too. What you probably get is 6 innings. Almost regardless of how it's going, unless he's completely getting blown up or he's throwing way too many pitches, in which case, not going to matter how many innings he pitches. But the quality start is roughly on the board, or at least the depth, the shot at the quality start is on the board for Gausman. On the other side, Hunter Brown has gone exactly 6 in each of his first 4 starts, so that's encouraging. 24 innings in 4 starts, a 25.3% strikeout rate, 5.7% walks, just a nice tidy 3.02 xFIP under an even better 1.50 ERA. Excellent mark by Stuff Plus, not allowing any home runs, not allowing many barrels, keeps the ball down very effectively, 28.3% hard hit rate and 84 miles an hour of exit velo on average. This is spectacular in terms of the contact numbers. Last year, looked similar on the barrels, lower even. The launch was up a little bit more, but the hard hits, similarly terrific. The ability to keep to induce weak and medium contact, similarly terrific. Pretty good results as far as the home runs. Stuff Plus has gone up pretty significantly in the small sample, and Stuff Plus, again, does work in small samples. 11.8% swinging strike, kind of jibes with the increase in Stuff Plus. CSW is up a little bit. He's made improvements, and he was already pretty decent. 9,000, 10.5. As I said at the beginning, you do have a low strikeout opponent on the other side, but it's a top-heavy lineup without a lot of quality at the bottom, with some Ks available at the bottom. As long as you're getting through Vladdy, Bo Bichette, and somewhat Anthony Santander, who's off to a bad start this season, there's really not that many problem hitters here for a pitcher like Hunter Brown. So I think there's elite upside. He's having an impact in the home run model on everybody not named Guerrero and Santander, and even those 2 elite power bats are below the magic number in the home run model. So I think it makes a ton of sense to strongly consider some Hunter Brown here. Despite not the best opponent, I think it's a really good option. Price there, my hope is that we keep a little bit lighter on ownership on FanDuel at 10.5, like I was saying at the beginning of the show. At 9,000 on DraftKings, he's probably going to get owned where he needs to be because these guys are a little bit closer. But he comes in 4th. There's no real daylight between those 3 projections, and it wouldn't be difficult to see him pitching at least equivalent to Spencer Schwellenbach. 3.55 implied total in Vegas also jibes with all of that. Between the 2 teams, I greatly prefer the Astros bats, but neither team is looking totally like a priority today with 2 good/capable pitchers on the mound. But if we're going there, we'll follow Vegas to the 4-run total. Jose Altuve is still a star at the top of their lineup. 302, 330, 419 to start his year. This remains concerning. That's where some of the power is gone, some of the output overall, but everything else is kind of in line. So we're just going to ride with it. 19.8% strikeouts, minimal walks. Needs to barrel the ball a little bit more consistently, but it's still Jose Altuve. He hits ahead of Jordan Alvarez, who's one of the very best bats in baseball, despite a 206, 310, 338 start. Just focus on the 375 xWOBA, the 12.5% barrels, and know that everything's going to be okay. It's still Jordan Alvarez. We will get there. Today could be the start of something big. 9.36 in the home run model. Gaussman cuts into the power numbers a little bit, given where those home run rates have been over the last couple of seasons. Not that one in particular, but as I highlighted, low despite a lot of barrels, a lot of premium contact. So to me, that collision of factors more favors Alvarez, right? You think that a hitter like him would be the guy that can capitalize on all that hard hit, all those barrels available, and would be one of the elite 2% that homered off of them over the last couple seasons. Paredes, as long as they're in their home park, as we've talked about a bunch, you can easily go there. 41, 3,000 benefits from the left field corner in this park for power. All three of his home runs have come in this park. It's a little bit of upside otherwise. He gets on base. He sees a lot of pitches. He can put bat on ball, but he's not elite in terms of anything that he does outside of a low strikeout rate, decent walk rate, and the ability to poke those left field home runs. He's highly average otherwise. Good spot in the lineup, stackable player, more correlated scorer than anything. Jeremy Pena is a mix and match quality shortstop. 3 home runs, 4 steals, pretty underwhelming outside of the xWOBA, would suggest there's more to come as far as quality goes, and that would just bring him back to his normal levels from over the last 2 seasons. 10.9% barrels, 50% hard hits. Off to a good start with quality of contact. Doesn't really support the numbers that he's put up so far. I expect this goes down as things normalize. Jake Myers, playable, but also skippable. 7 stolen bases. As long as he's getting on, he'll help create runs, but very much a correlated scoring piece in this lineup. Jainer Diaz, I continue to believe in wholeheartedly. He's at 143, 182, 222, a 272 xWOBA, a 15 WRC plus. He's at least barreled 10% of balls, but he's striking out more than he has in years past. I think everything corrects itself. Either that or something serious is going on that we don't know about. But I think he'll be fine in the long run. And I think right now when you can get him at 33 where you have to play catchers, he's a priority bat if you're going to Astros, and he's a high-quality one-off. At 3,300, you just cannot deny that is a very good price-based one-off at that position that you have to play on DraftKings, even if you're not going Astros. I do think you can play Jainer Diaz. Just ignore these 66 plate appearances completely. Focus on the last 2 years. Extreme high-quality catcher performance over a season and a half a season. He's excellent. Cam Smith, 27-26, 3 home runs on the board, 315 xWOBA, right around the average, but a 196 ISO. Hasn't really put high-quality bat on ball, but has delivered a few extra base hits, a couple of home runs, obviously. Mix and match. Rogers is problematic in the strikeouts right now, but he draws his walks. He can make good contact, 12.5% barrels and 54.2% hard hits, despite not seeing any kind of results for that contact so far. A .050 ISO, just a 312 xWOBA. This is probably around the truth, though. He can be better than he's been over 45 plate appearances, but he's also going to fall short of being like truly a priority or good. And then Zach DeZenzo at 2,300 has not done anything over 16 plate appearances. Didn't do much of anything over 65 last year, and 84 WRC plus, 2 home runs. Not much there. If you're going Blue Jays, did I stall long enough to get the lineup? We did not. If you're going Blue Jays, you're just working off the top of the lineup primarily. It's Bo Bichette, it's Vladdy, it's Santander. At least they're cheap. 4,300 for Bichette remains cheap at 2,900 on FanDuel. Same thing. This is a very playable, cheap shortstop. He's not as cheap as, I don't know, Zach DeZenzo or whoever it was at the bottom of the other lineup when I was saying you don't want him at short. Bichette is kind of who you have in mind for that. 313, 356, 396 to start his year. A 393 xWOBA. He's looking a whole hell of a lot like Bo Bichette. 51.2% hard hits. Double the barrel rate from last year. Looking a lot like the barrel rate from 2 years ago. Low strikeout, fairly low walk. So you're just buying high quality bat on ball. That's an ideal option at shortstop, even against a very good pitcher like Hunter Brown. That said, they're facing Hunter Brown, so you don't want to get excited about any of this. And they are a very top-heavy lineup, so it becomes really difficult for these guys to give it back to these guys for extra plate appearances that you need for a stack to really succeed. Vladdy remains elite, 13% barrels, 58% hard hits, 305, 408, 415. Just 1 home run if you need something to quibble with. That, the 110 ISO, those are results-based. The 430 xWOBA is suggestive that everything will be fine. Everything already is fine. The power will be back. Santander's more concerning. 2 home runs, just a 279 xWOB, a 114 ISO, 4.5% barrel rate, 37.3% hard hits. He's been a monster power hitter over the last couple of seasons. Major power hitter last year. But this dip is not ideal over his first 98 plate appearances. It remains very small sample, but it's one that you do start to keep a little bit longer of an eye on as we get into deeper samples. Once we get 150, 200 in there, we'll be talking more and more about it. Hopefully it's normalized by then and we're back to a good power bat. Right now, 42-28, he's just cheap. So I would definitely include him if I'm rostering Blue Jays. And you can see the home run model still believes. And then I say Menez is miscast as a cleanup hitter. I've been saying it since the start of the season. 3 homers, 7 steals is all right. A 333 xWOB is all right. But everything else just kind of looks like Andrés Giménez, not a power bat whatsoever. George Springer makes more sense in that spot, especially given the start. 2 homers, 344, 414, 557, a 391 xWOBA with excellent premium contact so far. He's looking a lot more like the old George Springer. So you move him up into the cleanup spot, and that's your actual top 4. Giménez really doesn't belong there. Addison Barger, 2,000 mix and match piece for the cheap pricing. Alejandro Kirk, Will Wagner, Alan Roden, really low-end bats down the lineup. 2 home runs across all 3 hitters in, what's that, like 130-something plate appearances. 80, 75, and 91 WRC+. plus. Everybody way below at 300 xWOBA to start their year. Everybody at or below that 107 ISO. It's been a bad handful of plate appearances. What was that? 187. I underestimated. So again, very top heavy. Those 4 are your idealized 4-man on FanDuel, but Giménez can fill in for any one of those guys, honestly, but probably George Springer most of the time on FanDuel, and you slot him at second base. On DraftKings, if you want a 5-man, it's just the top 5. There's really not a lot of quality. Very difficult to build full extended stacks on the Blue Jays. Hunter Brown. Kevin Gausman on DraftKings. Astros bats, Kevin Gausman on FanDuel, Blue Jays bats. Hunter Brown, easily the most appealing thing. Last game up, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Just kind of rolling through stuff. I did not see that Javi Baez has been playing center field. Why not? How's he doing out there? Has it been hilarious or has it been effective? That is not something that caught. Jim Parrish, Donovan for the Cards. I mean, I went through him before. He's an effective hit tool guy with a little bit of low end barrels, 5-6% barrel, 40-ish% hard hit, low mid teens, like 12 to 14 home runs type of a hitter in like a full 600 and change plate appearances. He's an okay lefty stick for that team, but I wouldn't be looking to go out of my way to grab him against Spencer Schwellenbach. And it sounds like you're talking about a one-off. So that doesn't seem like a good source of one-off. And you always want to be thinking, it's the reason I'm bringing this part up, and I'm sure you probably know, and you just happen to have asked about a couple of individuals. I think that was you before. Yeah. So for baseball, especially, we always want to be thinking in terms of stack, lineup, multiple options rather than mining one-offs. Yes, in like 4-3 FanDuel constructions, in like 5-2-1 DK constructions, you do obviously want to pay attention to one-off options. That's why I try and call out like cheap catcher one-offs like I did before. But your first instinct, you always want to be fishing for the best extended opportunities, the best stacking opportunities, and then you weave in the one-off types rather than like making your one-offs the priority or like individualizing a lineup. Some of that is maybe possibly changing around the edges with like smaller stacks, more one-offs, being effective in sim results, something to keep an eye on as far as actual results go. But right now, the support is still on the side of stacking being your primary instinct. So and again, I'm sure you probably knew that, but it does at least, give me something else to talk about. Last game up, Quinn Priester, Robbie Ray. So you can see some significant home run upside on both sides of this game, despite this being a ballpark that doesn't necessarily play up for power, despite the Giants being at a 4.01 and the Brewers being at a 3.57 implied total. Robbie Ray so far this year has a 4.19 ERA, but a 5.27 xFIP. This is already not great, and this is worse. 24.7% strikeouts is decent. but 17.6% walks is definitely not. Over 19 and a third for four starts. It's obviously a still hilariously small sample, but the fact that it's Robbie Ray stumbling out of the gate into the exact things that made Robbie Ray shaky, a roller coaster, a guy who could give you one extreme upside start and then three terrible starts and was completely all over the map. This is not an encouraging opening to his season, nor is it suggestive that we're getting anything like the guy that we last saw back in 2022 when he had a 3.71 ERA with a 3.58 xFIP, 27% strikeouts against 8% walks. Even in that good season, he still allowed a 4+% home run rate. But at least he was missing a ton of bats, 13.5% swinging strike rate. He was putting hitters away. That's the good. And then he's just largely missed each of the last two seasons, 34 innings total. Was very effective for Ks in the small sample for last year, but lost too many hitters to walks. 16.2% swinging strikes is great, but in that small sample, he was right back to that problem with a bunch of barrels, 4.65% home runs. Just a mistake-prone pitcher, a guy who's always given up power. 4.27 that year, despite 32% strikeouts, a 15.5 swinging strike rate. That was another year that was spectacular on the high end, but all the warts were still there. That was the elite year for walks. 2.84 ERA and a 3.36 xFIP that season. I don't have the home run percentages going back further in time. You can see like this year, that's, I think, pure FIP. I'm not sure if that was an xFIP or a pure FIP. But even this year, elite for strikeouts, 11.2% walks. This is problematic, a 1.34 whip. So this is who Robbie Ray's always been. He's always going to be a targetable pitcher to me who will sometimes break off incredible starts. If we get the walk rate, if he doesn't walk anybody over, let's say, his next 5 starts at all, maybe that walk rate will be somewhat respectable by the end of May. And we'll be talking about, all right, Robbie Ray's come around. It's looking like a great year for him, blah, blah, blah. And we can talk about high strikeout, but risky options. Right now, he's somebody I want to target with bats. 11 plus for Jackson Chourio, 11 plus in the home run model for Rhys Hoskins, Christian Yelich at 8.31, William Contreras at 9.77. Tons of power upside shown for the Brewers. There are also strikeouts in this lineup. So far for the season, they average down to just a 17.2 in these numbers, but that's because Caleb Durbin's at a 0. If you take that out of the equation, we're already at 19.4. You do have a few low strikeout guys here, but Chourio still strikes out. Yelich right now is striking out. He was at 22% 2 years ago, but just 18.4. So call it like a 21, 22% strikeout rate. It's not as high as it looks, but it's there. It's 1 in 5-ish. So I think Ray could find some success here for the Ks, but I'm much more into the idea that he's going to walk too many guys, put guys on base against a Brewers team that can capitalize on that. They have good sequencers. Look at this pocket of walk rate. Right? That's real. So that is directly playing into the problems that Robbie Ray has. So I'm kind of interested in Brewers bats. By all of those same tokens, I'm kind of interested in Giants bats coming the other way. Quinn Priester, last year in a slightly more complete sample in the show, just 14.9% strikeouts, 10.4% swinging strike rate, but didn't put anybody away. 4.71 ERA, but a 4.11 xFIP, 3+% home runs. He was good at keeping the ball down, but still lost a few home runs along the way. Way too many hard hits and exit velo, so mistakes travel. And he just doesn't have enough experience. We're talking about 15, 17 starts in the show, so like a half a season almost on the nose of experience in the show. He's going to be mistake prone. And this is a Giants lineup that can easily capitalize. Yaz, 8.48, 10 plus for Willy Adames. Jung-Hoo Lee, with all the pop that he's shown early in the season, maybe a little underappreciated so far by the model. Matt Chapman, one of my favorite swings in the league when it comes to bat speed and generating power. 9.65 in the home run model. He's got 4 on the season, a 200 ISO, 323 xWOBA. Cheap at third base. So give me bats. But 7,500 on DraftKings especially. Robbie Ray's in play. 8,400 on FanDuel. There's upside there. Quinn Priester at 66. Loosely in play. 74. Loosely in play. Like I said earlier, I do set him aside. My conversation about which of these 3 guys at the bottom leaves him out very deliberately. He's slightly offset by projection. I think he's more offset by talent versus those 3 guys. So I do think he's more usable here. You get the ballpark on your side for sure. There are strikeouts available in this Giants lineup. So far, this lineup, 24.6%. Last year, 22%. So it's very realistic to figure that there's a little bit of upside to squeeze on Quinn Priester. 4 Ks in each of his 2 starts this year. Last time out, 5 innings against the Tigers. Faced 19 hitters, allowed 1 hit. Struck out 4, walked 3. No runs. It's a good start. For 66, that's an effective SP2 start. 4 strikeouts, 2 walks, gave up just 1 earned on 6 hits over 5 at Colorado. We were obviously expecting him to get completely tattooed that day. I would say this Giants lineup definitely better than Colorado, but probably a pretty fair comp to that Detroit team in terms of like mid-board type power with a couple threatening bats, plenty of strikeouts available, similarly constructed teams. So I think that's a reasonable expectation comp. I'm not saying he's going to go out and one hit them. But for the prices, even on FanDuel, for a dart at 74, thinking you're probably not going to get the 6th inning, probably not going to get the quality start, I think it's at least like cheap playable there. It's going to buy you more bats than anybody else, right? Yeah, buys you $500 worth of, $800 worth of bats there. 1,000 against Robbie Ray on the other side of the game, more against Lodolo. On DraftKings, considering there's only $600 of separation between him and McGill, I'd probably, even with the more threatening Phillies on the other side, probably be trying to find some ways to get to McGill. But among the extra cheap pitchers, I think Priester is easily the best one and the only realistically playable one. And then, as I was saying earlier, I would just dip to Vasquez if you need to get cheaper for some reason by another $1,100, but no expectations there. I have some loose expectations that Quinn Priester could get through this start and maybe establish himself as loosely interesting for the season. I'm not sure yet. I would definitely roster bats in this game. In fact, this game as a game stack is currently the placeholder that I have in on FanDuel. Probably going to change that given where Vegas ended up coming down. I built that at like 2 o'clock in the morning. I just thought it was an interesting spot given all the home run downside that you could get here. A couple of interesting home run teams. Couple of interesting teams given the barrels that the pitchers are allowing so far in the small sample. 14% barrels there, 18% barrels there. So I'm kind of intrigued by the bats again. Like the pocket of power with these hitters. I would include Turang if I'm building on DraftKings, especially 5,100 at second base. Not a bad option. 8 steals as long as he's getting on base like this and he's driving the ball effectively this year. We're way up in barrels. We're way up in hard hits in the tiny, tiny sample of batted ball events. Lost a couple more strikeouts, but nothing concerning. Drawing a few fewer walks, but still getting on base via BABIP. I'll take that trade-off any day. 365 xWOBA, 122 WRC+. Jackson Churrio's a superstar, 5,500, 3,800. He's got 5 home runs on the board. A 293 xWOBA is kind of concerning, but belying that with the actual output so far, 260 ISO, a 115 WRC+. Strikes out a little bit more than we'd like and doesn't draw enough walks, but I think that comes around, at least normalizes to where it was last year, and he's too good not to push that walk rate over time. So that'll normalize. What we're really buying is the bat on ball, the extreme power upside. The kid is just good. 49 for Yelich is a couple hundred cheap on DraftKings. 35 is correct on FanDuel. I don't care about the 203, 314, 392. The xWOBA at 344 is appealing. Definitely consistent upside for power from the left side of the plate. Even against Robbie Ray, I'm not sweating it with Christian Yelich. Yelich is, come on, for the career against Sam-handed pitching, 270, 345, 419, created runs 9% better than average. He strikes out slightly more. He walks slightly less. He does hit for less power. He goes from a 191 career ISO down to a 149. And the WRC plus against righties is an elite 37% better than average for his career. But he's still, again, 9% above average against same-handed pitching. 49 of his career home runs have come against lefties in 1,821 plate appearances, 159 in 4,648 plate appearances against righties. Christian Yelich is just good against either hand. I'm not going to sweat it against Robbie Ray. Could easily get out there and draw a couple of walks, get on base, score a few correlated runs, or be the source that drives in these guys. So big fan of Christian Yelich, especially at that price. 4,500 for William Contreras, where you need catchers, is great. You can one-off that. That's a playable one-off. It's not bargain bin, but it's cheap for the quality of bat that you get. 3 home runs on the board, just a 300 xWOBA, 100 WRC plus this year. Last year, he hit 281, 365, 466, had a 185 ISO, hit 23 home runs and created runs, 31% better than average. I think we give him the benefit of the doubt and let the contact catch up to expectations. It's been pretty similar over each of the last couple of seasons. So love the option where you have to play the position, and easy enough to play him either in tandem with Rhys Hoskins or as just the standalone as their first baseman. 26 for Rhys, though, with the 11 in the home run model, kind of appealing. He's got 3 home runs on the board now, 324 xWOBA, 164 ISO, still got a ways to go, but he's getting on base. He's drawing his walks, 11.3% walks at 352 on base so far. His created runs 20% better than average, still just 3,900, 2,600. He's ultra cheap as a 3 true outcomes hitter against this pitcher on both sides. Just realized I hadn't checked for the confirmed lineups. Neither one in yet. The bottom of the Brewers lineup does get a little bit bottom light, whatever the opposite of top heavy is. I stumbled into saying that the wrong way around. They are a top heavy team. Frelick at 4,000, 3,100 is slashing a good line so far. 342, 432, 474, a 345 xWOBA. The issue with him is he's just like a correlated scoring piece. He's low strikeout, medium walk, get on base, steal you a bag, score you a run, but he's not the big knock guy. He's not the guy who's going to come up and drive everybody ahead of him in. You could argue that you could go, like, you do want Rhys Hoskins 5 for the power upside with the top 4 hitters, and that's the ideal way to build this lineup. But if you had, I don't know, there's a good argument to be made that Frelick should hit ahead of power bats. But when Turang's going the way he's going, you can't move him up to the leadoff spot. So you're kind of stuck down here unless you just relegate him to the very bottom of the lineup and consider him a wraparound option. And that doesn't really fly with needing to put these guys down there in terms of their real life lineup. The issue becomes, though, that you get an on-base guy without much support to knock him in the next 3 lineup spots. So it becomes problematic for sequencing, becomes problematic for Frelick's individual upside given what his skill set is. Last year, Ortiz did give you 11 home runs, 11 steals, a 104 WRC plus. We'll see what the other two come up with in the long run, but it's a little bit rough down there. So it shortens their stack to, top 5 is very strong. Frelick can be played, but he's diminished in what the expectation ought to be for where he would be if there was a more complete bottom of the lineup. On the Giants side, I think Yaz is very interesting. The 848 is appealing in the home run model from the left side. He's got 3 home runs on the board already this year, a 246 ISO, 8.9% barrels, 42% hard hits, right in line with where he's been each of the last 2 seasons. That's a true left-handed power bat for a cheap price, 42.32, cheaper on DK than he is on FanDuel. 18 homers last year and just 474 plate appearances, a 200-plus ISO, 15 in 381 with a 212 ISO the year before that, 17 in 558 back in 2022 with just a 177 ISO, his lowest end power performance in 3 years. And even that, for this money, is perfectly fine. That's a respectable enough cheap outfield power bat. Willy Adames, lousy over 99 coming off the career year last year. Over 688 last year, he had 32 home runs, stole 21 bases. 211 ISO, a 119 WRC plus. We're probably not going back to this territory with Willie, but we're definitely not going to linger down here all season. 267 xWOBA, 61 WRC plus. It's been flat out bad, but it's got him priced all the way down to 41 on DraftKings, even further at 28 on FanDuel. The only guy above a 10 in the home run model today. I like him to get his second of the season today. There's not, I'm not calling it, but I think there's upside for it. Jung-Hoo Lee at 48.37, their most expensive bat on either site. Justifiably so far, given the production. 333, 389, 593, a 385 xWOBA, a 259 ISO, creating runs 71% better than average. The contact's just been pedestrian, 7.2% barrels, 36.2% hard hits, but he's putting an elite amount of bat on ball via the low strikeout rate. He's pushed walks up a little bit, but it's not getting in the way of the contact frequency. It's a very good option with a little bit of power potential. 5.37 in the home run model, though, shows you the difference in his true power upside, given the contact versus like everybody around him in the lineup. He would be an interesting option to move into the leadoff spot if they don't move Lamont Wade back. This is still the projected lineup, by the way. Lamont has been down here their last few games because of this horrendous start. .091, 215, 236 slash line over 66 plate appearances now. This is a guy who last year got on at a 380 clip. The year before got on at a 373 clip. I still very much believe will come around. It's just been really ugly. He's striking out a lot more in the small sample so far this season. Just not fully engaged yet. But you could see him land back in the leadoff spot today. If not, you could easily see that be Jung-Hoo Lee. I think they're kind of entrenched with Lee in the 3 spot, but I do also think that he would make a ton of sense in the leadoff spot, and Yaz would be perfectly capable of hitting 3rd, so would Lamont Wade. Little old school thing to have him in the 3 spot, honestly. Matty Chapman at 45, as mentioned, love the swing speed, 9.65 in the home run model, 4 homers on the board, 3 stolen bases on the board. We saw the uptick in steals last year with 15, 27 home runs. He's a very good player. 247, 328, 463 is a moderate slash line overall. You're home run hunting most of the time with Chapman. 216 ISO, 121 WRC plus. He's an excellent option given where he's always priced. And honestly, how he's typically owned. People don't tend to go to Matt Chapman as much as they ought to. 8.78 in the homer model for Elliot Ramos. 3,900, 3,300. More affordable on DK than he is on FanDuel. Probably more correctly priced on FanDuel given the power upside. 176 ISO so far this year. Just a 307 xWOBA, but hit a ton of home runs last year in 518 plate appearances. 22 homers. A 200 ISO. Kid's a good right-handed power bat. For the cheap price on DK, he's a priority if you're going Giants. On FanDuel at 33, correctly priced, he's just playable. I would play Wade even if he's hitting down here 6 at 2,900 if I need a first baseman. I don't mind sacrificing first base to that. He's got enough pop in the bat, and you're getting the upside in a return to form for a night. A ton of upside for on-base correlated scoring ability. 2,500 on FanDuel, very cheap. You get him in the outfield as well. Easy to utilize. Maybe not a priority right now, but definitely if he's not in my first stack of Giants, he's in my second build if I'm going to more than one. Wilmer at 38-32, a reasonable enough alternative at first base if you want him. 6 home runs on the year, a little odd output for power, 228 ISO, just a 292 xWOBA, just a 27.4% hard hit rate, an exact match for what he was last year. Barrels have been up slightly in the small sample of batted ball events. When it's all said and done, he's going to be very much like the Wilmer Flores we've seen over the last couple seasons. But at these prices, that is a usable player, more so on DraftKings than on FanDuel, where they've got him up at 32, which is like the upper limits of the threshold that I would want to pay for Wilmer. Patty Bailey at 35-26 is a mix and match catcher at the absolute best, but Tyler Fitz remains interesting. 302, 353, 492 to start his season. A 190 ISO, creating runs 37% better than average. He's already homered twice, stolen 5 bags. This is a player who last year hit 15 home runs, stole 17 bases in just 341 while holding down a very effective slash line, a 200 plus ISO, and creating runs 32% better than average. So far this year, the xWOBA is kind of defying all of the production we've seen in 300 or 411 plate appearances so far. But everything else is right where it needs to be. So I don't love this as an indicator of sustained success. But as a stat filler, as a cheap option at an ideal second base, as a wraparound play in a lineup that I do think is interesting, but could use a guy who could get on base and make things happen ahead of the power bats that they have up top, I'm intrigued. I wouldn't leave him out. Not in 2 builds, maybe not in the first one, but again, another guy, not in the set. I wouldn't leave him out of the second build. I like the idea of like 1, 2. Obviously, Matty. Then it gets tough, but you've got good options. So right now we've got Yastrzemski, Adames, Chapman, and Tyler Fitz for a wraparound stack. And for those 4, we're at just 4,000 apiece, which is great because Fitz has been paying that off since last year. And that's appropriately priced, if not cheap, for all these other guys. So you've got the money that you could easily just go Lee. If you go Lee, you're at 4,160. And you can get even cheaper by going to a excellent power bat in Elio Ramos at 39. That brings us down to 39 as an average. So we're paying Elliot Ramos's price for everybody in that stack. If you went Wade instead of him, you're going down even further. 37.80. Giants are cheap. They're going up against Quinn Priester today. If you had taken the two effective but not great in any way starts off the board for the Quinn Priester's made over the last 2 days, I think we'd be looking at the last 2 games. I think we'd be looking at a higher run total. In a neutral park, this would be definitely a higher run total. So just in lineup versus pitcher, if you neutralized everything else, this would be a spot where we would definitely be more excited about the Giants than I think probably people are getting out there. Let's see what their lineup ownership looks like. Jump to DK. This will be the last thing we check. Their pitcher is projected for double the ownership of any of their hitters, and only one player on the team is into the double digits as far as ownership in the lineups go. I think it's an interesting, underappreciated stack at the end of the night. I'll stop short of calling it a late night hammer, but I think it's a damn interesting stack to play late at night. And quite honestly, that Brewers on the other side, also appealing. William Contreras is projected for gigantic ownership. That might just be a product of people, them expecting people to one-off him. And then only one other player into the double digits on that team. It's the guy you would expect. And then everybody else fairly low owned. A lot of playability in this late game. Ballpark, again, the ballpark's going to work against you a little bit, but not to extreme degrees. It's 62 degrees, which is a balmy night in San Francisco, and the wind is blowing out to center field. So also benefits there. I'm intrigued by this game, guys. I really am. I might not change that game stack. I might leave that alone. Lineup I built at 3 o'clock in the morning, just without putting the model together and just kind of speculating on what would look like what. What did I use? I remember it's got Lodolo on the mound. Lodolo, Reese, Turang, Matty Chapman, Tyler Fitz, Jackson Churio, Christian Yelich, Younghoon Lee, and Elliot Ramos with Nick Lodolo. It was an exact price fit on FanDuel. That's my placeholder. Don't use that. Nobody play that lineup. Shh. Let me win one. Favorite stack with most of the lineups out, asks Larry C. Atlanta or whoever else was the second team at the top of the board. There's a stacks board included for under $1 a day in your rotoscouts subscription. The top stacks, it was Atlanta, and then Cincinnati was a standout for me. They projected out really, really well, and they're showing good value marks. I like them a lot. And then on the stacks board, interestingly, this Milwaukee-San Francisco game sitting 3-4. So again, supported by the tools, there's upside here. Why does that say 3? Oh, one of these changed. That's right. So this morning, with some pretty low totals on the board, the Giants total was actually, when I put the stacks board together, was third by Vegas, even down at a 4 and change. And it was, which game? This was there. I think the Astros went up slightly and just nudged their way past. And then one of these, was it Padres Detroit that gained? I think, no, maybe not. Maybe the Mets. I think the Mets gained ground to push up above. But they actually, despite that 4.01, you can see how it plays. Every road team, except for the Reds, is behind their projected total. These home teams obviously slightly ahead to further ahead. But yeah, the Brewers and the Giants rank out decently on our stacks tool. The Tigers are going to be an interesting one. That's a juicy total, that 4.63. I think they're going to get popular. And as mentioned, they didn't grade out quite as well as you would expect. I'm not going to rewind the whole show, I promise. It is this game? No. Who the hell are they playing? Padres. Right, like their man-for-man projections don't grade out crazy and don't come out to the best average overall. And that's partly because you've just got that bottom end, with apologies to Jace Young, who shouldn't be included in that. Like, you've got these guys kind of dragging down some of the averages here. And you've got maybe slightly lower because like a guy like Torkelson, given the underperformance last year, the strong performance with some negative indicators the year before, he's not going to project out as high as some potentially comparable bats for what he could be / probably actually is. So I called it out when I was talking about this team with the Tigers. If you're coming up light on Tigers exposure, and I've got them ranked in the middle of the board overall as a stack today, but I think they're going to get more popular, and Vegas at 464 sees them as one of the higher implied totals of the day. If you're not getting as much as you want, goose those totals a little bit. I think it's perfectly fine against all the contact that Randy Vasquez is going to allow. So they're on the board maybe a little bit more firmly than they look like. Mets, Phillies are tied up in a tough pitching matchup, but they actually outrank the Tigers. But yeah, for me, I like Atlanta, Cincinnati, and then I like that Milwaukee, San Fran game as far as mining around for some stacks. I think the Braves are going to get crazy popular. Don Plot, no. I went through that when we talked about Miami way back at the beginning of the show, a couple hours ago now. But that lineup's getting more interesting. What sucks on DraftKings, at least as of the last time I checked, Agustin Ramirez not added to the slate yet. That shortens that lineup a lot. For me, it becomes more like a 3-man on DK. I really like Jesus Sanchez, but he suffers a little bit against the lefty. And it's just a bit of a stretch to bolt him on. Otto Lopez, Dane Myers, not priorities, but playable. But the loss of this bat, unless they add him to DK, and if they do, he becomes a priority if you're going to Marlins. They're more playable because you can get to a good 4-man on FanDuel. So like I would just go those three and Agustin Ramirez. And now we're at a $2,600 average. They're very cheap. They're easy enough to reach. There is a moderate power showing. A couple guys just under halfway to the magic number. A couple guys a little over halfway. Jesus Sanchez still at a 6.72. They're getting slightly better with some of the call-ups. So you're not crazy. Against a gettable pitcher like Lodolo, I prefer the Lodolo side. I think he's got plenty of upside for the money. And again, he is in my placeholder lineup now. But to grab these guys and go against him, go against his newborn baby narrative, wants to perform for his new son or daughter or whatever it is, maybe set the precedent. He's going to just be a disappointing father his whole life. I guess that's what you're betting on. Now, it seems like a playable back and forth spot for sure. But again, do prefer the Lodolo side of that. But I do think you are, not crazy. And you've got some cheap playability there, especially in those top 3 plus or minus. Larry says, wow. Weren't expecting me to take a shot at Nick Lodolo's potential fatherhood at the end of the show, huh? He's going to put that up for bulletin board material in his kid's bedroom for his entire life. No, I'm sure Nick Lodolo will be a marvelous father. I don't know if he already has kids. I don't know if this is his first or anything about his family whatsoever. Sure, he's a nice guy. I think that's a good point to end the show, gang. What do you guys think? One last look at the pitching board. I know I scrolled over to it a bunch of times already. Schwelly, offset at the top. Love the option. There's Lodolo right there, though. 87 on both sides. I do think there's a lot of playability. And again, maybe not getting what he deserves against a very low-end Marlins lineup that we just talked up slightly. Robbie Ray, no faith, but very cheap and definitely has some strikeout ceiling, but you need him to get through those walks. There's a lot of problems to be solved. Don't love it. Probably would be my least favorite out of these top, let's say, 6 pitchers. Hunter Brown, love the option. Very expensive on FanDuel. We hope that cuts the ownership a little bit. $9,000 more reasonably priced on DraftKings. Still a big believer in Aaron Nola, but out of these top guys, that's probably the most difficult matchup going up against the Mets. So it becomes problematic, and it could be yet another log on the fire for Aaron Nola's washed if the Mets happen to get to him for like 3 runs today. Kevin Gausman, a lot of that also applies to him given the matchup against Houston, 93, 8,000. I would take Nola every time at price on either side. Tyler McGill, plenty of upside for him. Just got to get through a couple really tough bats in the Phillies, but he's been going well, and the price is great. DraftKings even more so. And as I said at the beginning of the show, given what Robbie Ray's true ceiling is, and given the cheap pricing on both of those guys, I am intrigued by the idea of putting McGill and Robbie Ray together if you're not risk averse. If you have a problem with taking risks, if one lineup is important to you, don't do that because it's probably not going to work. But getting the upside that those two pitchers can provide in a vacuum for that money is powerful on DK. So it's very much there for the people who want to take it. Max Meyer can also be part of that conversation. You could easily have made that this or even the Ray Meyer combination. So I wouldn't take him off the board as part of that either. And you can see how much FanDuel thinks of him, pricing him at 10-1 today. Second highest pitcher on the slate, 7,600 on DraftKings. Truth is probably somewhere in the middle. And then Priester's the only guy from the bargain bin that I really think is worth considering. But you just heard me talk at length about the bats in that game on both sides. 66-74, I think it's worth trying to throw a few darts and find out if you're building a bunch of lineups. In one, Quinn Priester's probably not my pitcher with all this quality and all these cheap prices on the board. All right, gang, with that, 2 hours and 19 minutes for a 6-game slate. Sure. This is too much fun. You guys rock. Hit the like button. Subscribe over at rotoscouts, under $1 a day. Gets you all the baseball stuff we've been going through. Gets you NBA projections, NHL projections, which are both live for tonight's playoff action up on the site. They'll be updated. We're, almost exactly an hour out from lock for baseball. So I'll get these lineups updated so everybody can go build, and we'll go from there. You guys rock. Thank you so much. Good luck out there tonight. Somebody go win something, share a screenshot when you do. And we'll talk about a presumably larger slate tomorrow. Maybe for longer, maybe for less time. We'll see. Have a good night, guys. See you tomorrow.